this man, you know you're the same. So if they do something to you, forgive and forget. So I have an unforgiving heart. If Yeshua forgave your sins, so I cause trouble with your brothers, 'cause in the Torah you're the same. So you owe someone and you beg for forgiveness, but now you've been forgiven and you won't do the same. So I have an unforgiving heart. If Yeshua forgave your sins, so I cause trouble with your brothers, 'cause in the Torah you're the same. So have an unforgiving heart. If Yeshua forgave your sins, so cause trouble with your brothers, 'cause in the Torah you're the same. So unforgiving heart.
Life is about context. Not like I'm saying with the verses, like who's speaking, etc. This is another level of context I want to talk about. Life is about context. Let me give you an example. How many of you ever wondered, this came up in a conversation the other night, how many of you ever wondered why Yeshua, I mean, after all, he's the Messiah, he was slain before the foundation of the earth, he offered himself freely, would sit there in the garden and prayerfully say, Father, if it's possible to take this cup away from me, can that be done? Was he afraid? No. Was he panicking? No. What was different then than at the foundation, before the foundation of the earth? What was different? The context of him now being in flesh and knowing what that feels like. He had a concept of it before the foundation of the earth. He agreed to do what would be done before the foundation of the earth. But what did he say, though, in the context of it? He said, nevertheless, I submit fully to you, Father, whatever you say. And do you notice that once that conversation ended, he just got up and did what he had to do? There was never another word about it. He didn't whine, didn't complain, didn't gripe, didn't have an attitude problem. Did you notice that? But there was a context change. He had a concept of human life until that time. Now he understood in a full context what it felt like to be us. It says he's been tempted in all things as we are. He knows what it feels like inside, in our hearts, in our emotions, in our minds, in our physical bodies, to feel pain, etc. None of those things did he have any understanding of before the foundation of the earth. Just like in 1 John, we have the opposite of it. We have a hard time contextually understanding what it's like to be them. Well, I want to transform into the image of the Son, and I want to transform. Well, you don't understand what even that looks like. You have concepts about it, but you don't have any context yet, which is why John in 1 John says, I don't know what we will be like, except that I know that when we see him, when he comes and we're changed into that, then we'll have context. And we'll see him and understand him as he is. Is this making sense? Okay? And so you say, oh, I want to be a disciple. Oh, I want to live in that first century model. You have no context to know what that feels like and is because you live now. You don't have anybody doing that around now. You can't see what that looks like. You can't even get the concept and visual because you can't even watch it being done now anywhere. I have so many people that have come to me and said, will you be my covering or can I disciple with you? And I promise you, almost none of them probably truly understand because they don't have the context yet what they're asking for. They just don't. I had a gentleman one time that when we were talking about something and there was something that he didn't want to do, and he said to me, he said, Rabbi, please don't make me do it. And I said, I won't. I said, but don't tell everybody you're discipling with me either. Because if you're discipling, if I say do it, you do it. So I'm not going to. Because that's a disciple level thing. I will never interfere or insert myself in your life unless you invite me in a relationship that is correct for that, my inserting myself. Do you understand what I'm saying? In a disciple level relationship, you've given me that permission to speak freely, out of love, and out of truth, unfettered, straight. But if you don't want that, don't say, well, I want to be your disciple. Because that's what we all think. That's what the ultimate thing. I want a disciple. But are you ready to trust anybody that much? Are you ready to trust a physical person? Because discipleship is done by people. By the way, Yeshua trained 12. If you want to look at the 70 or 120, but let's look at the 12. And he sent them out to do what? To make disciples throughout the nations. And so they were trained, having the context and the experience of what that looks like to do it with others. But we want to, I want to be a disciple. First of all, we don't have the physical structure to handle that because you'd have to really be where I am if I'm doing it, or whoever your teacher is. You'd have to live where they are to be able to do this on a like Yeshua did. He kind of almost lived with them, right? Went around and spent all that time with them. And discipling is a very intimate and intense relationship. As close to husband and wife as people can be that are not married. Or like as close as father and son or father and daughter, who are not actually physically father and son, father and daughter. Okay? Or whatever that is. Women can be discipling other ladies too. It says that the older women are supposed to be training up the younger ones. So it's as much as a mother with a daughter. But can you trust? Well, I don't know. My mother and I had a terrible relationship. My father and I had a terrible. See, you don't have context for it. You don't have the framework to understand what you're asking for. Because your experiences have been completely the opposite and terrible. But this has to do with context. You have to start to now have the context of understanding what a covenanted person in a relationship with our Messiah and our Creator should look like and behave like. We've got information, we've got concepts, and you have to start applying them to get more context. And you're not going to really know where you are until it goes bad. When I mean bad, meaning the way you will feel when you don't like what's happening or you disagree and you're being put in a place to have to make a choice that you don't want to. Because then you're going to choose, am I going to trust or am I going to run? Or am I going to badmouth that? Well, you have no idea what that guy just said to me, blah, 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 treated me like this. When the kids just went, uh-oh. That's a good timing on that, uh-oh. Because I'll have a few of those conversations and I'll leave those conversations going, uh-oh, we're going to find out now where we're at. All right, we're going to find out now.
When the darkness comes, will you be ready with your light? And when the darkness comes, will you shine so bright? When you're called upon, will you answer him? And when you're called upon, will you be ready for his call? In the New Jerusalem, when there's peace again, in the New Jerusalem, where brothers come together, in the New Jerusalem, where Yeshua shines his light, in the New Jerusalem, amen. Now that the darkness is gone, will you still shine your light? Now that you're saved, will you still pray day and night? Despite that the darkness is gone. In
We're live? All right. Wait, hold on. Let me pinch. Yep, I guess we're live. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. All right, if you'll all rise for the sounding of the shofar. Amen. Amen. All right, let's go ahead and sing praises to our King.
Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat.
Come, let us praise the Lord and sing him a new song. Come, let us sing his praise together with the saints, with all the righteous ones. Let Israel rejoice in her Creator. Let the children of Erev Zion be glad in their King. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Come, let us praise the Lord and sing him a new song. Come, let us sing his praise together with the saints, with all the righteous ones. Let Israel rejoice in her Creator. Let the children of Erev Zion be glad in their King. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Sing and dance unto the Lord.
Arise and shine. Arise and shine. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. And the nations shall come unto thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thine eyes round about and see, they gather themselves all together. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. And the sons of those who afflicted thee, and all who have despised you will bow down. Then they shall call you the city of the Lord, Zion of the Holy One of Israel. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. Oh, arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee.
I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountain tops, let my voice proclaim the tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. Messiah of Israel is he, restorer of our nation. Hope of David now we see, bringing us salvation. Root of Jesse, Lion of Judah, Judge of Israel. Now we praise you for your joy and love that never fails. Jesse, Lion of Judah, Judge of Israel. How I praise you, Lord, you're the rock of my salvation. You I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountain tops, let my voice proclaim tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. Yeshua is his name.
Amen. Amen. We should be singing praises to his name, not just on Shabbat, but every day, all the time. Father, we come before you, and we're just so blessed that you cared enough about your creation and the creatures you've made that you would give us a day to put aside all the cares of the world, a time to rest, be refreshed, to be re-energized and refocused on you and what you're doing. So, Father, we appreciate that when you made and brought all things into existence, you knew that we would need this time. So we appreciate the time. We value the time. We are blessed by this time. And we are just wanting to sing and dance and make a joyful noise to express the overflow of love and joy in our hearts that goes and flows towards you. So, Father, we want to thank you. We want to praise you. We want to give you all glory and honor. We want to ask that you would be here with us, that you would guide and lead all things so that all things would be to your glory and your honor, and that, Father, that we would be worthy of the calling, and that you would be pleased and proud of your children who are here gathered today. So, Father, we ask, we seek, and we place all in the hands of our Messiah, Yeshua, as we come to you in his name and his authority, and together we say, Amen, Amen, Amen. You may be seated. All right, excellent job again by the praise team. So this is the time that we take up the prayer needs of the congregation here locally, as well as those of you that are on the live stream. And you're certainly welcome to type in. We have Kurt and we have Robert both on the desk today, here live. And usually Kurt's over in Georgia, but he's here today with us. And so treat those guys nicely. Yeah, we applaud for that. See how popular you are? Okay. Except when you're not here. Well, then you're more popular. No, I'm kidding. No, we miss you when you're not here. And we appreciate that you're here at the desk helping Rob out and the two of you working together. And so as we begin our prayer time, we do have a lot of people that are out today, so we'll certainly pray for all of those. Manny, you were missed on the guitar today. I know you're out dealing with some under-the-weather issues, and so but we do appreciate that Michelle was able to come and sing with Brianna and that we were able to get this done. It's nice to have more than just one or two people in the praise team. If you miss one, the whole thing can go, but to have everybody else step up and work things out. And I know that it's interesting because Brianna will pick a set of songs that has a lot of guitar-driven sort of parts to it, and then she'll go, great, now we're missing a guitar, missing guitar. Or it'll be very drum-driven and we'll miss the drums or whatever it is. But it worked out beautifully, and so great job again by everybody. All right, so Steve's got a mic. He's going to walk around for those of you locally. Kurt and Rob will take the requests from the live stream. Keep the backstories, please, to a minimum, and we'll try to lump, if it's okay with you, some of the ones together that are similar enough that we could kind of put them all in the same sort of thing. Let me begin. I'll actually begin with, so if you notice, Rebbitzon's not here. Okay, so she's down in Florida with her father. He's 91 years old, and he's been by himself for a little while, and he's not really, as you can imagine, anybody would be at 91, not really well suited to just take care of themselves. And so she needed to go down there and attend to some of the things that are happening with him. And so please keep them both in prayer. Okay, who's next? Okay, Tricia?
Thank you. After speaking to my mom this week, she is in some really serious pain. The doctors aren't really, because she's on Medicare and apparently because she's not on the deathbed, they're not giving her any help that she needs. She's just in a really serious, bad place. There is a sense, my perception of her letting go. So just keep that in prayer, please.
Okay, we certainly can do that. Okay, Shannon?
Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Just wanted to say, ask for prayers for Sarah Beth. She's homesick, and pray for a speedy recovery for her. And she wanted me to tell everyone that she misses you. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you. We can certainly pray for Sarah Beth. Okay, Wayne?
Yeah, I just want to ask prayers for the three little ones. They're home under the weather. And I just want to also ask for prayer that I'm going through some really bad health problems right now. And I just need prayer for encouragement and for discernment and what's the other word? to be able to go through what I'm going through. So I just would appreciate that. And also on a good note, just praising the Father that I did start my new job. It is going very well, and I'm just grateful for that.
Did you get in touch with Bob at all about getting a protocol or something? A little bit, okay. Okay, the mic's coming around. Amy?
So my grandmother did her last round of chemo. So unfortunately, her spirits are kind of down this round. It's kind of hit her the hardest of the three. But the doctors are optimistic as long as she continues with her diet regimen and everything else, keep her immune system up. They're going to schedule her surgery soon. So they're just going to do another CAT scan to see how small everything has gotten and see if they're able to get at that huge mass with cancer and hopefully just get it out of her body. So if you guys can just lift her up in prayer, keep her spirits up. After a long 9 weeks, she's finally starting to feel a little low. So just keep that in prayer. Thanks.
Amen. We certainly can do that. Okay, coming around. Okay, Rick?
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for keeping your colds at home. Betty's doing that today. Chuck has his feet were so swollen he couldn't even get shoes on this morning. So if you keep that in prayer. And also prayers for wisdom for Kevin and Linda Shutt as they go through whatever transition is going to happen between him leaving the hospital probably sometime this coming week and where they're going to go from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Jana?
I just want to, Shabbat Shalom, sorry.
Shabbat Shalom.
Just want to praise Yah that I got through this week, first week training at both jobs. And if I didn't already look forward to Shabbat, I'm going to now, because I'm going to be guaranteed 32 hours at both places. So that's 64 hours in a week. So please keep me in your prayers.
Amen.
So thank you, Abba.
Amen.
Yeah.
64 hours. I wish I could have 64 hours. Now, that's great. Listen, and you know what? Just be, as you are, grateful for it, and then use that to really get yourself back stabilized and, fix, whatever needs to be done. I mean, what a great blessing it is. And again, she has such a great testimony to talk to her about going from a place where you're struggling, you're discouraged, and next thing you know, now you got 2 jobs giving you 64 hours, okay? So, I mean, that's really a great testimony. Okay, who's next? I missed where... Oh, Chloe was right there next to you with the mic. Okay, sorry, Chloe. Go ahead.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I have a prayer for my Aunt Lisa and Eliada. They are homesick today.
Okay.
So I just pray that they feel better.
Okay, certainly. We've got a lot of split houses today. We've got husbands here without wives and children and things like that. So that's, And by the way, I really want to give a positive encouragement that that's good. It's good that those that are home will allow those that can to be here and not feel the need to just, I think it's good that you allow that to happen. It sets a good, consistent pattern. And so I'm not saying it's good to be split. I'm just saying it's good that those that are home can say, hey, listen, you go, represent the family, be there. And so good job on that. Okay, Michael.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
So I got a couple of things. First, praise Abba, I got my glasses. I can see everybody.
Somehow it makes you look more Jewish. No, I'm saying. That's an inside joke. Never mind. Okay.
That's one praise. The other praise, my mother will be here on this 22nd.
All right.
To stay.
Oh, to stay.
To stay. And then I have a really good childhood friend that with the earthquake in Puerto Rico, they were without electricity for a while, and that caused, as a ripple effect, a good friend of mine, childhood friend, to pass away, 37 years old. So if you keep his family in prayer for their shalom.
Okay, certainly. Who's next? Okay, Mr. Steve.
I have a praise. For the 5th year in a row, I received a Super Service Award for a company that holds my advertising. It puts me in the top 5% of Chattanooga for service providers.
Amen. And by the way, for those of you that may have a business or a job like Steve does that, was well established where he was and he had great ratings and everything else, it didn't take him very long to get over here and to get the word out. And especially if you work with some of these online, like Angie's List type places or whatever these other type of businesses, can post their things. And so don't be afraid of making those transitions. You can find work, you can, reestablish yourself, and the reputation could be out there, etc. So anyway, who's next? Live stream?
Okay, from Vivian Gray, prayers for daughter-in-law. She deploys with the Navy. Anita Coleman, prayer request for my best friend Starla, who's in a hospice. It will be a week on Monday, and her husband Blake, who is by her side.
Okay.
From Stephen, eyes damage from Stevens-Johnson syndrome, or SJS. Do not make tears and have low vision, asking for prayers for restoration of my eyes. Ali R. from Olivia, thanks Abba for my daughter's doctor appointment for going well. Allison Ellis, prayer for PTSD about being beaten and earthquakes. Kevin and Rhonda Hamilton, prayers for Rhonda dealing with migraines today. Sherry Sherrard, please continue prayer for Earlene Mill and Brenda Phelps, for they are fighting cancer. Mara Smith, asking prayer for my son William. His father passed this week, and his father's current wife wouldn't let him go to visit and say goodbye to his father. He's very sad. Ryan Rudolph, please pray for my friend Bob. He had a massive heart attack when he was at a hockey game on Thursday, was airlifted and has been sedated since Thursday and is waking him up today. MTOI Lakeview, prayers for Karen and Carrie who are sick. Melissa's daughter who is dealing with depression. Praise for visitors here today and for what the Father is doing here. Pat Novak, praises out to Yah big time for some really important changes within my medical situation. Also, please keep up the prayers for the addiction issues with my children and for their families. Tamara McKee, please keep me in prayer. I fell and shattered my kneecap. I'm having surgery on Monday. I'll be on crutches for about 14 weeks. Not looking forward to that. For Michelle Huerta, please pray for my father. He has a biopsy scheduled for Monday morning. Pray for shalom, both him and my mom. John and Tammy Rooks, please remember John and I, we deal with PAH, diagnosis and financial status while we wait on Social Security disability. We are heading into week 16 without any income. Lisa Hersey, praise report after praying for protection at home. An enormous tree fell down, missing our house, garage, and protecting our children. And between the fires, we are finally away on our 25th anniversary. Dominique Purcell, praise, I'm feeling better than I was earlier this week. The coughs aren't as bad not as bad as they were, so praise Yah. The coughs have caused nosebleeds. I'm just happy to see another day. From Charles Davis, from Bubba, please pray for my friend Randall Steele. He's in the ICU from an overdose. He's in medical-induced coma and paralyzed. They're going to do a CAT scan to see if the brain has any function. Alyssa Holmes, my mom got a pretty good report from the radiologist. She has one more CAT scan, and then we'll see oncologist. From Tony, praise report, praising Yah that a lump under my arm completely disappeared. Thank you all for the prayers. From Nita A, prayer that Abba will ease the passing of this kidney stone. From Mahler M, please pray for the swelling in my lymph to come down. From Anonymous, prayers for my friend who lost both of his parents in the past month, is traveling to Nigeria for funerals. From Judy, please pray for my daughter, Tiana. She's expecting her first child, is now suffering from asthma and having difficulty breathing. Angelic Ewan, for my 7-year-old Abigail, having nutritional issues, must do blood work, and for pain she is experiencing. From Torah Bear, my daughter has severe flu symptoms, praying for her to have some relief and be able to sleep through it. From Nancy H., prayer request for a friend, Shay, awaiting results for breast biopsy. Tom Lasordo, prayers, our close neighbor having major surgery, and unspoken for my wife and myself. From Carolyn Giles, please pray for my macular degeneration that seems to be getting worse. From Valandra, prayer request for my friend. She went into premature labor and delivered just over 5 weeks early. Both are doing good, but could still use prayer as baby boy is very small and still in the NICU. Prayer for Joe Good's daughter, Jael. She is 21 in the hospital for a virus that attacked her heart. From the Klein family, praise report, our daughter Brittany will be induced next Tuesday. Baby is gulping and attempting to breathe. Thanks for the prayers. Carol Lopez, please pray for my best friend that just lost her brother. Please pray for the family as some of us are facing health issues. And that's it. Many prayers for overseas, Australia, and then the earthquakes in Puerto Rico, and some traveling mercies, and financial, marriage, and many unspoken. So that's it.
Amen. Amen. Okay, let me go ahead and add a few things here. Okay, so first of all, we do want to pray for all those that have contacted us since we got together on Tuesday for Torah Studies. So we do have people that contact us. We certainly want to pray for those situations that were shared with us. Also, I want to, just because of the weather situation, I want to give everybody some information. Okay, so as you notice, it's very warm outside, and of course the drastic temperature changes can lead to things like storms and tornadoes and all that kind of good stuff. We are not under any of those kind of warnings yet, but that kind of thing could be heading in our direction. So if that does come up, we have people on our security team that will let us know. What you need to know in here is that the back kitchen, the bigger room, like where we normally keep the desserts, that is all tornado rated. I mean, that is hardened and safe, and also in both the ladies and the men's restrooms that they have here, if you go beyond the stalls, there's a door that goes into another back room. Those are also part of the same type of deal. They're not normally unlocked. We unlocked them today. So the children upstairs and the class upstairs already been instructed what to do if we need to get their attention and bring them down. And so we would, in an orderly and calm manner, hopefully go back into that side of the building, and we should be fairly safe in that side of the building, okay? So we don't expect this to be necessary, but we just wanted to make sure you had an understanding of the protocol, that we do actually have a safe space in this building that is rated for that, okay? It's a big space. I mean, that whole back area with the shelving and the where we normally do the desserts, okay? So, but again, until somebody from our security team, like Mr. Hayes or somebody, tells us what's going on, there's nothing to worry about. We are monitoring it in case, okay? Now, let's see if there's anything else on my sheet here. Okay, that I think we'll, what? Go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I'd like to pray for Stacia Hayes and anybody else that might have been affected with the ongoing Middle East stuff.
Okay. Well, Stacia's just on her normal deployment weekend, okay? But then again, of course, anybody in the military could be called to anything. All right. So, as different groups are being called to different places, with her particular job, she wouldn't be sent to some place, but she'd have to stay in a place here in a military base doing what she does administratively. So she, still would not be able to be here. But it's not likely that she would be deployed anywhere, into another country. At least that's my understanding. But of course, we do want to pray for all those that are at potential risk as the tensions, I guess is the right word, in the world are, they roller coaster, they get high, they get low, they get high, get low. Right now they're a little bit higher, and we certainly want to keep that in mind. All right, let's go before the Father. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Father, I should have added that too, my coughing. Father, we come before you and we recognize you as our creator. We recognize your authority as being the king of the universe, as having authority over all existence which you have brought into existence. All things that exist are because you brought them in, and therefore all things are subject to your will. We recognize that authority. We recognize who you are. We recognize your place in the universe, and then we also recognize our place in relation to you. And so, Father, we really appreciate that we have a relationship with you. We really appreciate that we can come before the supreme authority of all things and tell you how much we appreciate what you do for us. The things you do in our lives that remind us that you are aware of us, that you care about us, that you're involved on some level. And so, Father, we just really appreciate that so much. And Father, we also want to thank you for the mercies and the compassions that you pour on us all the time and the patience you show us all the time. Father, you've heard us lay before you our concerns and our needs, and we also have those that were unspoken. And Father, we know that you hear and you do answer all prayer, but we also recognize that your answer may not be in the form that we would have desired it to be. But Father, help us to accept and to know that your way and your answer is always the right answer, even if we can't see it at that moment, even if we don't understand it at that moment. So Father, we thank you. We praise you. We give you all glory and all honor as we come before you, praising and seeking, asking and knocking, and also appreciating all that you do in our lives, never taking for granted, always coming with appropriate awe and reverence for who you are, and also, as always, in authority, the authority of your Son, Yeshua, our Messiah. It's in his name that we pray. Amen. 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 All right. If you'll all rise for the liturgy. Brianna and Marty will lead us in the liturgy.
Hello. Okay, it's working now. Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Yahweh HaMorach. Baruch Yahweh HaMorach le'olam va'ed. Bless Yahweh who's blessed. Blessed be Yahweh who is blessed forever and ever. Ma tovu. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vayed. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh is one. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever. V'ahavta. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. And you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Amen. V'ahavta l'recha chamocha. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Ni chamocha.
And the children of Israel shall keep the Shabbat
to make the Shabbat throughout their generations an eternal covenant between me and the children of Israel. It is a sign forever that in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed.
Amen. Amen. All right, you may be seated. Shema and V'ahavta, the tithes and the offerings. We don't take up a formal offering here, but we do have an offering box in the back. We have donation buttons on the website. The purpose of tithing, as we understand it, is to always put Yahweh first in our lives. It helps to remind us and teach us that we always need to put Yahweh first in our lives, and not just with our finances, but in every area of our lives, and also to appreciate his abundant blessings. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who commanded and made promises to us concerning the tithe and the offerings. May you open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that cannot be contained as we walk in these mitzvot and these commandments. Amen. Amen. Okay. If you would like to support the ministry in addition to what you do with your tithes and offerings, or maybe you just would like to do more, but you don't have the finances to do it, there's a way we can do that through Amazon. We are part of 2 different programs. We're Amazon affiliates, which means that if you go to the mtoi.org website and you click on the link that looks like the image you see on the screen, that will take you to Amazon, but they will know that we sent you, which will get us a referral fee based on whatever you purchase. We're also part of the Smile program, which Blossom is now smiling at me very nicely. She got all excited she saw me up here. The Amazon Smile program is smile.amazon.com, smile.amazon.com. And then the first time you go, it'll ask you to pick the ministry or nonprofit that you would like to support with your purchases. You pick MTOI. You just type in the 4 letters MTOI, and then a portion of your purchase will be donated to MTOI. Okay? From then on, when you do your shopping, you just would, instead of going to regular Amazon, you go to smile.amazon.com, and when you go there, it will remember that you selected MTOI the first time that you did it, so you won't have to keep doing that. It'll say it up on the screen somewhere on the top of the page there. Your purchases are supporting blah, 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 MTOI. Okay? All right. Announcements. We want to welcome our guests. We want to welcome guests. We do have some guests here today. We want to make sure we make you feel welcome. And, we are children of Abraham, according to the way the scripture lays out our identity, that if we're believers in Messiah, we're submitted to covenant, we're submitted to all of those things, that would make us children of Abraham. And Abraham, of course, was known for his hospitality. So we need to help make our guests who are here, as well as on live stream, feel welcome. Now, if you're on live stream, please, I'm going to say this again later, but please be respectful of Kurt and Rob's leadership in the chat box, in the chat room there, okay? Because, this is a congregational Shabbat service, and it should be respected that this is being done as a part of a commanded observance, and we are doing it in our loving each other and loving him, and it just needs to have a shalom, a peace about it. So we ask that you would respect that. And by the way, everybody on live stream for the most part does. I mean, there's only a few that come in and decide they just want to be foolish in their behavior and they just get a little bit whatever. So, and if you're in the live stream, don't let those people disturb your peace at all. Don't feel you need to say anything. Let Rob, let Kurt, let them handle it, and they will. Just kind of ignore it and let it go. People are people, and if we know anything about paying attention to history, we know that everything that's possible, people can and will do. Both good and bad, foolish and smart, whatever it is. And so you get a couple of hundred people in a room. I mean, what do you got, 400 or 500 signed on now? Okay, 556 out of, that's a lot of people. Okay? And some of those represent 2 or 3 or 20 or whatever people, because they're little groups that get together and watch this. And so certainly the ability to be foolish and that could be found in a group that size. All right. So for the guests, we do want to let you know that we have an Oneg after services. That's our fellowship meal. I mean, after all, we make you sit here for 4 hours. Least we could do is feed you. By the way, if you ever bring a guest here, I hope you're letting them know up front that this is going to be a long day. Now, I know that you enjoy it and it doesn't maybe feel that long, but I'm just saying is let them know, especially if they've never been through something this long. I mean, some of them have been to church services that 20, 30 minutes you're out, you know. And then they come here and each little segment that we do is more than 30 minutes. So we're going to be here for a little while. Okay? All right. Torah Studies, Tuesday nights. Okay, so every Tuesday night. And by the way, if you're on live stream, we do this every Saturday, same time, 1 o'clock, 1:15 is when we officially start. And then on Tuesdays, every week, we do a Torah study, 8 o'clock Eastern time. This coming Torah study week, that we're going to be doing some special things here. So hold on, I'll actually mention that in a second, because the next thing is the Parsha Pearls. Okay, so on Tuesdays, we go through the weekly Torah cycle. We use the 1-year cycle. This Tuesday, we'll be starting the book of Exodus, the book of Shemot. Okay? Now, we also have a youth program that goes through the Torah portions. It's called Parsha Pearls. The youth group is called YMTOI. We're called MTOI, so just put the word young in front of that. So, Young Messianic Torah Observant Israelites. And they have a Parsha Pearls program, so you can change the slide. Whoever's on back by the slides. There we go, thank you. And so it is a Torah portion program designed for the youth. Now, we are going to continue to put them out. We will not be putting anything new out for a while. We're working on a few things. So the first 7 or so Torah portions for Exodus will be still posted from the older ones that we had from the last couple of years. So those are still available for you to go through again and to enjoy. But we aren't going to be putting anything new out for at least the first 7 or so of these, okay? So just keep that in mind for those of you that are, you know, you may get contacted by somebody in your group who's not on today. They're homesick or something happened. And they'll be like, I went on there and I didn't see the new teaching. What happened? And they say, oh, no, it's okay. They announced they're not putting any new ones out for a little bit while they get certain things rearranged and organized, okay? All right, let's see. And by the way, that whole program is free, so you do want to check it out and make yourself available to it, because it is a fabulous, fabulous program for your children. You can use it in your homeschooling. You can use it as your Sabbath school, etc. All right. This Tuesday, though, okay, and I don't think we have a slide for it, but this Tuesday, when we have our Torah study, we're also going to be doing our 8-year anniversary. Okay? Okay, so our 8-year anniversary, there's a slide for it. Celebrating 8 years of working together to serve the body. And so it's really not so much 8 years of MTOI. MTOI is more like 7 years. But it's 8 years of Beth Shalom. We started it in January 14th of 2012. So, you know, so it's going to be our 8-year anniversary. So we're going to do a dinner that night. There's a sign-up sheet by the offering box over here on the back. And we're looking for you to sign up and tell us how many people in your family. So not everybody has to sign up, just one per family. But mention, are there 3 of you, are there 8 of you, are there 1 of you, whatever it is. We're going to be doing an Italian theme, okay? And so we are encouraging, you know, things like lasagna, penne pasta, ziti, that kind of stuff, salads and everything else. If you have any questions about it, see May. May, raise your hand so everybody should know who May is, okay? So, right, May's going to be kind of coordinating that, and she can answer your questions. Her number is also on the sheet in case you know, maybe have a question down the road. You could always jot that down and give her a call. Okay, but you can certainly see her after services today. I mean, after all, we only have a couple of days, and then it'll be this week's time. So we're going to try to get that meal in. Now, we are going to make sure to be eating hopefully no later than 6 o'clock, but we'd like to hopefully plan to try to be here for 5:30. If we shoot for 5:30 and get 6 o'clock, we'll be in good shape, because the Torah study starts at 8 on time. You know, dirty dishes and plates and tables notwithstanding, we're going to start no matter what. So let's make sure that we can go ahead and get here and enjoy each other's company and enjoy the celebration and have a nice dinner. Okay. Leadership meetings. Okay, so we have leadership meetings coming up. We have one coming up on Sunday the 19th. Okay, so those of you in the leadership, just make a note that we do have our leadership meetings on Sunday the 19th. Also on January the 26th, that is Rosh Chodesh, okay, for Shvat. And we're going to do a meal for that as well. I think I mentioned this last time at Torah study. We're going to try to eat as much as we can. Every excuse we can have, we are going to involve food. Well, scripturally, that seems to make sense. I mean, he does call his events feasts. He wants us to feast and break bread together, and that's part of really the place. I think probably the best place relationships are built is over food. I mean, generally speaking. I mean, if you're married, you probably did a lot of your dating at restaurants at some point. I mean, maybe you went and did a movie or some other thing, but at some point you ate. There's a lot of talking that goes on over food. You get to know each other over food. So it's a great way to build relationships. And so we're going to do a meal. Again, we're going to shoot for 6 o'clock with an 8 o'clock service for Rosh Kodesh on January the 26th. Okay. March 10th is Purim. We're going to link that together again with our Torah study. The details, it's most likely going to be that we are going to, as we've said before, we'll eat, we'll read the book of excuse me, the book of Esther. Okay? So for Purim, we'll read the book of Esther. And as we read the book of Esther, we might just do that while we're eating. We'll be eating, we'll be having some people come up and read, and we won't be streaming that necessarily, but we'll read the book of Esther, and then we'll have our Torah study as usual. Passover 2020. All right, so Passover is coming up in April, and we do have registration forms on our website. We also printed out a few more and put them on a table by the offering box. You're welcome to grab a copy. If you live anywhere where you cannot download it or print it or some other thing and you can't fill it out online, you actually can fill it out online without actually having to print it. You can do that too. Just let us know, we'll mail you one. Or just give us a phone call and we'll mail you a form. Okay. I think that's going to cover the announcements. I'm just looking to see if I missed it. Oh, finance class. All right, I did have one more thing on my list here. Let me just mark that I covered that. Okay, so finance class, I'm working on that. We should be ready to start it sometime here really soon. I'm still waiting to make sure we've given everybody a chance to sign up. The sheet is still on the back table here. If you're interested in the class, please let me know. You or how many in your family, if it's you and your spouse or whatever is going to be coming, or maybe you've got older adults, children that might want to come or whatever, that are part of the group, we can do that. And so we can work that out. Now, teenagers, we're going to be doing some classes just for you on life prep, which will include understanding money and finance and that kind of thing. So the teenagers are not for this class necessarily. We're going to do something specifically geared towards them in the future as well. By future, I mean like soon, okay? So as soon as I get this list worked out, so today should be probably the last day to make sure if you need to sign up on it so I can at least start to decide what to do with it. The other thing is when you sign up, give me a preferred availability. In other words, when are you available for the class? Now bear in mind, there will be some of you that will not get your preference. I can't, I looked at the list and there's not like one time and one day that everybody's available. I'll try to hit the biggest majority that I can. If I can get a big majority together on a particular day at a particular time, that's when we'll do it. Okay, so that's what I'll aim for, and we'll see. Let's see if we can do it that way. We're going to try to record it, all right, so that if you don't get to come because it doesn't match your schedule, you could always watch the recording. What you'll lack is the interactivity of it, but you can still contact me and we can sit down and have a private discussion about whatever interactive part we need to do, okay? Also, for those of you that already signed up, write down if it might make sense to do it on Shabbat. Well, not really, but like after sundown. I mean, that's if people can stay late enough. I don't know. But I'm thinking that it most likely will be on a Sunday afternoon like we did last time, and that's the group that most can fit. So I know that some of you work shifts that doesn't work with, and I apologize for that. But like I said, we're going to record it so that you can watch it. If you're on live stream, we're going to see what we can do to post those recordings, so even on the live stream, you can have availability of that, okay? And the class is going to cost you an incredible nothing. Wait. You know how sometimes if something is stated and something in writing has a little asterisk or something? And then you got to go down to the page to find where the asterisk is? It's going to cost you a lot. You're going to have to change behaviors. You're going to have to change thinking. You're going to have to change habits. You're going to have to put in a whole lot of effort. So there is a cost to this. It's just not going to cost you money, okay? So that's my little asterisk. When I say it's not going to cost you anything, there's no financial price for it. But you're going to have to pay a price in other ways. Psychologically, emotionally, physically, you're going to have to do some things differently in order to succeed in those areas, okay? Just want to make sure, I'm clear on that, because I don't want you to think you're coming to something, because I'm going to be putting the class together, not the one we used last time. And in my class, I'm going to get in your face. But I'm also going to encourage you that you can do it, but you have to want it. You got to chase after it. You got to put in the effort. You've got to do the work, all right? If you do, it will work, like everything else. If you don't, it won't, all right? But if you don't come just to think that with your financial problems, the answer is going to be to come and have yourself coddled in some way. I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to be harsh. But I am going to be strong. Because if you really want to get there, you need that. It's kind of like if you paid a workout instructor, right, a private instructor at the gym. You wouldn't want that private instructor going, all right, maybe you could do another one. Why don't you give it a try? Or no, you want that instructor to go, come on, you can do it, let's go. One more, you can do it, let's go. You can tell I've had that job before, right? All right? And that's what you're going to get in the class. You will get a cheerleader, but a cheerleader that has 2 boots available and ready to go. Okay? Because that's what you're going to need to break out of this rut that you're in financially. And a lot of it's psychological, a lot of it's emotional. And we're going to give you the tools necessary and the encouragement and the motivation to get there. Amen? All right, so that class I'm excited about as we get there. Okay. So that being said, by the way, I tried to do that same thing with you about Torah observance on Shabbat every weekend. Come on now, you could do it. Hang in there. Don't give up. Get on your knees, repent, start again, own it, fix it, let it go, keep going. Right? Amen. All right, come on. All right, let's see. I think that's going to cover it for the announcements. So let's go ahead and get the chuppah set up. Wait a minute, hold on. Okay, yes. Okay. We have a seat and tea on Thursday at 1 o'clock here. So if you know how to make seat, if you want some help in doing it, but mostly we're looking for the ladies to have a chance, or whoever wants to come. We have a little bit of a dessert snack of some sort and some tea and some schmoozing and making of seat. And this is, if they're good enough and when they get up to the right quality, then we use them in the marketplace. So we use them as part of the seat that we can use to support the ministry. Now, we are going to get a regular schedule for that. I don't know if we're going to do it on an every other week basis, or if I'd rather just make it the first and third week of the month, or the second and fourth week, or something like that. Make it a little easier to work out, or only once a month, because I know they first started talking about an every other week thing. So we will talk about that on Thursday. I'll come to the class real briefly, say hello, and we'll talk about how we want to schedule it, okay? What? 1 o'clock p.m., okay? 1 o'clock here. And I think the meeting is right here in the kitchen. They've got tables. They'll set up the seat boards. And they'll also be able to make the tea and have the snacks right in there. Of course, I mostly just come for the snacks and the tea. Okay. All right. Yes, Meg? Oh, yes. The Erev Shabbats, I will announce that next week. We're going to be doing that on the first Friday of the month, so we should be doing that in February, the first Friday into February. So I do need to add that on here as a note to myself. And that's, hold on, let me just look at my phone real quick here. So that'll be February 7th. Okay, so February 7th will be our first Erev Shabbat here. Okay, yeah. And so we're going to try to do that most months. The first Friday of the month, we'll try to do an Erev Shabbat congregational time. And we do have a little bit of time. It's only the middle of the month now, so we have a couple of weeks we can still announce it. So we will, get that out there. But I'll put that on, and Marty will get a slide done for it, and we'll have the announcements on Tuesday, and we'll have the announcements again next Shabbat. Okay, thank you for reminding me. Excellent. We're doing so many new things, I don't have them all ready and in my notes to go. Fantastic. Let's get the chuppah set up for the children. And while they're doing it, don't forget again for the anniversary dinner on Tuesday, we do have the sign-up sheets in the back. I'll remind you again after services that you should go over to sign up. Okay, careful, guys. If the poles fall, they can, and will hit you in the face. Okay, Josh, you want to come on up? It's muted. All right, let's go ahead and get the children under. And you could step just underneath if you want, Josh, so you can have her under there with you. We'll get you underneath the chuppah. All right, let's get all the children underneath. Well, we got one or two more still coming. Here they come. All right, so we're going to be led in the blessing over the children by Josh Diltz. If you can all extend your hearts and hands towards the children.
Our Father, our King, I want to come before you, ask a blessing on these children. I want to thank you for them. We pray that they learn your ways, and when they're older, they walk in them. We ask your protection on them. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen, amen. Okay, children, you're dismissed to your classes. Gadol class, you're here, as is the usual setup. Everybody else, you may be seated. I didn't mention earlier, but people do tend to ask usually before when I first get here if I will be doing counseling afterwards. Yes, I will be available. I even made a sheet to sign up on. So we'll be doing that after Oneg, okay? All right, let's get set for the teaching. If you got a phone, let's go ahead and check and make sure that it's set to silent. All right, so Mr. Cole, check with them, make sure we're good. All right, we're good to go. All right, let me make sure my phone is off. I think so. Okay, we're good. All right, so whenever you start the timer, then I'll get started. All right, so today we're going into Darkness and Light, Part 11. Part 11, all right, yay, okay. That was completely underwhelming. Okay, so we're Part 11 of Darkness and Light. Apparently some of you are still in darkness, and we need to work on that. Maybe you couldn't see that we were Part 11, and so you just didn't get as excited. Okay, so in our journey through Darkness and Light, we are in the Brit Hadashah. We've been going through some of Paul's letters to the congregations that he was serving. And we're going now to the letter to the Colossians. And as we are going through this teaching on darkness and light, we talked a lot about what darkness is and what light is, and we're still focusing on the relationship to being under authority or not. Okay, so we're seeing that at this point, that darkness is often being discussed from the idea of if you're in darkness, you are either not under authority or you're under wrong authority. Okay? And if you are in correct authority, if you're in the correct, proper alignment, this is called being in the light. That being in the light is submission to Elohim's authority. Okay? Now bear in mind, you are always under authority. You may think that you're not. You may be running around and because you're either following your own authority or some other authority that you're submitting to. When I say not under authority, that may be because you're completely changing from minute to minute whose authority you're under. So you're not clearly under a defined authority. You may choose from moment to moment to be under different authorities, but I think that generally speaking, Scripture says you're a slave to whom you serve, and we are under one master or the other. Usually it's self-sovereignty. It could be Hasatan, it could be family members, it could be friends, it could be anything. But you must get full authority over yourself so that you can truly submit under the true authority. So you must make sure you've kicked everybody else off the throne, including yourself, before you can submit yourself to Elohim. So this idea of darkness and light in the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament is talked about and discussed very much in the understanding, or with the understanding that it has to do with our relationship to authority. Colossians chapter 1, and we're going to read a bunch here to get to the verses that have to do with darkness and light, which will be verses 12 and 13. Now, for context, and by the way, this is a big problem. If you listen to other teachers, not all of them, I'm saying, but if you are listening to other teachers anywhere, or if you remember when you used to listen to some teachers or whatever, this is where a lot of them make the mistake, is they don't give you enough context for the verse that they want to talk about. So we're going to start in verse 1, even though we're getting to verse 12, and then we're going to even continue all the way to about 23. Shaul, an emissary of Yeshua Messiah, by the desire of Elohim, and Timothy our brother, to the set-apart ones in Colossae, and true brothers in Messiah, favor to you, and peace from Elohim our Father, and the Master Yeshua Messiah. Okay, so he starts out making sure that we have two of the primary pieces of context. Who's the writing? This is Paul with Timothy. And who are they writing to? The set-apart ones in this location. So he's not writing to people that are prospective members. He's not writing to just the Gentiles in general. He's writing to those who should have an understanding of what this is all about. People he's been working with, instructing, discipling, whatever level of relationship he's had with them. He says, we give thanks to the Elohim and the Father of our Master Yeshua Messiah, praying always for you. And I actually should go back, and he also mentions clearly that his authority is that he is an emissary or an apostle of Yeshua. He's a sent one of Yeshua. And he's doing this by the desire, as all things are, of Elohim. Okay? Then he says, we give thanks to the Elohim and Father of our Master Yeshua, Messiah, praying always for you, having heard of your belief in Messiah Yeshua and your love for all the set-apart ones. Okay, so he's saying that I've heard that you're doing the two great commands. You have a vertical love and a horizontal love that's appropriate. And we've heard that you do these things because of the expectation that is laid up for you in the heavens, of which you heard before in the word of the truth of the good news, which has come to you, as also in all the world it is bearing fruit and growing, as also among you, since the day you heard and knew the favor of Elohim in truth. And again, if you want to go to understand what that word favor there, or grace in a lot of translations, is all about, you'll need to listen to the teaching, search for the doctrine of grace. Okay? Now, because if you're going to think of it as unmerited favor, let's plug it in the two places that we just read. Verse 2, it says, to the set-apart ones in Colossae, or how we pronounce, where the Colossians are, and true brothers in Messiah, unmerited favor to you and peace from Elohim. Does that make any sense? Why would you wish unmerited favor on somebody? We wish you merit the favor. May you merit his favor. By the way, if you go into a Jewish community today, you will hear them say that phrase to each other on a regular basis. This is a very Hebraic Jewish understanding that traces back to this time of where the Colossians are and earlier. May you merit his favor. And then continuing, it says that you would do these things because of the expectation that is laid up for you in the heavens, of which you heard of the good news, which has come to you also in all the world, etc. And it says here, since the day you heard and knew of the unmerited favor of Elohim in truth. No, you've learned about how to merit his favor in truth. In other words, you've been trying to, in darkness, merit his favor the wrong way. Is that clear? We have, as a people throughout history, you see this all the way back to the beginning with Cain and Abel. People trying to merit favor, but doing it in a way that's not what the Father desires. He said, but you're looking for an understanding, and you heard and knew about the meriting of Elohim's favor in truth. In other words, the correct way to do it. As you also learned from Epaphras, our beloved fellow servant, who is a true servant of Messiah on your behalf, who also declared to us your love in the Spirit. Okay? In other words, you could take that and say, oh, they had an out-of-body conversation through the Spirit or some other weird thing. Or you could say, no, we were taught and explained about how your love is in the fullness of the nature of what you were doing, the intrinsic nature that you are intrinsically have the nature now to love one another correctly. The spirit of it, the fullness of what its intent is, the intrinsic nature of it. He's saying that we are excited that we were told and it was declared to us of your nature being that now of love in a correct Elohim way. That is also why we, from the day we heard, have not ceased praying for you and asking that you be filled with the knowledge of his desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. Now you see how that is completely in line with what I said earlier about favor and doing it in truth, is that we've been praying that you would be filled with the knowledge of how to do all that. That you would be filled with the knowledge of his, not yours, not mine, not somebody else's, but his desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. Spiritual meaning the fullness of how he intends it. And that your nature would be changed. Verse 10, to walk worthily of the Master, pleasing all, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of Elohim. See, this is a problematic verse, again, for most of mainstream Christianity, because this idea of walking in a worthy manner means that you're earning something. There's no getting around that. If I have something for you that you must be worthy to have, you must earn it by doing something that is worthy of what I want to offer you. And so we are to walk worthily, showing that we deserved, that it was not a waste to give us truth, to call us. Be worthy of the calling is something we read last week, right? The idea of being worthy of the calling. So here we're being told to walk in a worthy manner, worthy of the Master. In other words, worthy of, you claim you're Yeshua's, but then you act the fool. Is that worthy of claiming you're Messiah? Is that worth it that Messiah called you? Or is Messiah going, why did I even bother? Why did I call you and draw you and show you the Father? And the Father saying, why would I draw you to Messiah if you're just going to do this dumb stuff and not listen and do and just be on your own self-sovereign I way? Me. Or you're still going to listen to somebody else and put somebody else in charge or some other authority to rule in your life. He says, no, you should be filled with the knowledge of his desire and understanding and having wisdom, etc., to do his desire, so that you therefore would walk in a worthy manner, pleasing all. By pleasing all, he's still only talking about in the context of the covenanted structure. Not necessarily that what you're going to be doing will please everybody outside of the camp, because it won't. Okay, so be careful when it says pleasing all, because people say, oh, well, we need to just be tolerant of everything because we're told we have to please all. The context here is this is to the set-apart ones, the set-apart Colossians, who should understand and have a relationship, a covenant relationship with the Father and the Son. He says, being empowered with all power according to the might of his esteem for all endurance and patience with joy. So he's saying, look, in this journey, that's why we're praying for you, and you get filled with wisdom and understanding to do what is worthy of the Master. You're going to need patience, endurance, because to do this with joy is going to be tough. He says, for all endurance and patience with joy. Okay, I get the patience and endurance part, but how am I going to be patiently enduring something and joyful all at the same time? Generally speaking, I'm not joyful about things that require a whole lot of patience and endurance. Apparently, Shaul went to the same crazy school that James did when Yaakov tells us to count it all joy in your trials. So there must be a challenge that we have to understand in this idea of joy. There's a challenge with this joy thing. You know, a lot of motivational speakers out there will tell you absolutely 100%, and they are right, that your joy, your happiness, and all these other things are simply choices. Wow, you mean that these people in the scriptures understood that before all these modern-day motivational guys? I wonder where they got it from. Because if you're going to find joy in a trial, it must be because being joyful in a trial is a choice. It's not a response that's an automated response. It's actually an optional choice. You're in a situation and you now have a menu pop up. Be frustrated, be depressed, be angry, be happy, be joyful. And you can actually choose any one of those. You don't have to default to be depressed, be frustrated, be angry, or whatever it is. You can choose be at peace, be joyful, be happy. These are choices. But see, Paul understood that this was a challenge. So he said, look, we are praying for you that you would walk worthy, that you would have endurance and patience with joy. Because it's very hard to have joy when you're impatient and frustrated and struggling. Giving thanks to the Father who has made us fit to share in the inheritance of the set-apart ones in the light, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness and transferred us into the reign of the Son of his love. Okay, so let's stop right there. So we're giving thanks to the Father because he's made us fit to share. Okay, again, that has to do with worthiness, having merit in some way. He's given us what we need so that we can be prepared or fit or skilled or whatever it is that fitness has to do with. All right? He's made us able, competent to. That doesn't mean that we will actually do it. He's just made us able to do it. He's given us what we need to do it, so that we can share in the inheritance of the set-apart ones who are what? They're in correct authority structure. They're in the light. Now, in case you think I'm making that up about authority, the next verse tells you he delivered us into that light by taking us out of the authority of darkness. So there it is, right there in, I hate to say it, black and white. Okay? But it's that clear. If you're in the light, and the light is a deliverance out of authority of darkness, it means that you're now under a correct authority. So the darkness, which has to do with ignorance, it has to do with being in a place devoid of useful light, etc., there's an authority in there that you had submitted to. And of course, we've talked about this in several of the parts, that the challenge really was that we were told that we were in the light when we weren't in the light. That the authority that we were under was correct when it wasn't correct. This is a challenge. Remember, we looked at the verses that say that even Hasatan's emissaries would appear as angels of light to you. And so he's saying, look, he has given us what we need and made us fit. In other words, we're prepared, we're ready, we're able to share in the inheritance of the set-apart ones in the light, who has delivered us from the authority. Now, when it says delivered us, it doesn't mean that you are no longer potentially able to come under the wrong authority. He has given you a way to come out of it. Okay, deliverance has been made available and has been provided to you, but the problem is Christians will be taught and read these verses as being once saved, always saved, or once delivered, always delivered, or once out of darkness, never can go back to darkness. None of those things are permanent things. Why else would we say that all fall short? Why else would you need to pray and repent daily? Because daily you come under wrong authority. Daily you usurp the authority that should be his. Daily, or you allow someone else to do it. Daily you end up in darkness. So daily you got to repent and teshuvah and go back into the path of light. These are not one-time event things. So he's telling you, look, you are delivered out of the authority of darkness and transferred us into the reign of the Son of his love. So he transferred us in. Okay, so now we're in the kingdom of his love. Yes, we now have access to and can actively walk in that kingdom of love, so to speak, under that authority, if we choose to not be under the authority of the darkness. When we go back, guess what we're not? We're not any longer in the reign of the Son of his love. We're now under the reign of something else or somebody else. It's an authority thing. So when you are sharing in the inheritance of the set-apart ones in the light, when you are delivered out of the authority of darkness, at that moment and during those time periods, you are in the reign of the Son of his love. However, you can choose, because you're free to move, you can choose to go from one kingdom to another, one authority to another, as often as you like. It's not wise. It's certainly not showing understanding. It's not safe. I mean, it's got a lot of all kinds of downfalls to doing that kind of thing. There's certainly only disadvantages and no advantage whatsoever. But you certainly are not restricted. You have nothing stopping you from doing that. So he's trying to give you an understanding. Look, if this was not true, why would Paul need to be praying for them? See, he's saying you are set apart ones. You're on a journey. And on this journey, you can turn left or right. You can go back into the darkness. You can come out from the light and go into a place of darkness. You can change the authority that you're under from proper authority to wrong authority and back and forth. He says we need to pray that you do not do these things, that you endure with patience and joy, that you immerse yourself in the goal and the effort of walking in a worthy manner, worthily of the Master, that you would bear fruit in every good work. By the way, again, you'd have to listen to teaching like, well done, good and trustworthy servant. The first part talks about the definition scripturally of good. What is a good work? Well, I think it's a good work, when I remember to refill the copier at work so that people don't end up out of paper. Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice thing to do. Or it's a good work when I help the old lady across the street. Like, the old days used to see that all the time as a big deal. That's a good work too. But he's talking about that you are vertically aligned under authority correctly, so that you're in obedience and submission to what Elohim's desire is. It says, earlier we read about how you are focused on his desire, not yours. So what's his desire? Well, he puts it in the covenant, that you would do and submit to everything that comes out of his mouth, every word that comes out of his mouth, all of the things that he might tell you to do or not do. If you do that, you walk in light. When you choose not to, you walk in darkness. That's part of the curses chapter. Deuteronomy 28, it says, when we're in the curses, we're in that darkness, we're groping around at midday like a blind person. I mean, here it is. The light's shining, it's out there, and that's what Yahweh's saying. Look, I've shown you what you need to do where the light is, but you want to choose to walk around and fumble around like a blind person who can't see, even though it's bright as day out there and there's nothing wrong with your eyes. So I'm not picking on people with a handicap. I'm saying, but that's the metaphor. He says, you're acting like you're handicapped. He says, I've given you everything you need. There's no reason to fumble around. I've delivered you out of the authority of the darkness. Now, bear in mind, this is all what Paul's talking about also in other places where he talks about, the law of sin and death versus the law of life. The wrong authority, with the wrong plan, with the wrong way of doing things in your body that wars in your members is not the Torah that's the problem. It's the you thinking you know better. The you, I know what to do. I know how it should be. Be careful with that, because if it doesn't line up with him, you're going to be in trouble. And even if it does line up in him, but you're taking all the authority, you're still not lining up with him. You got to stay under his authority. So remember, this is all telling you that if you are under the title set apart one, while you are walking in that title, he has delivered you from the authority of darkness and transferred you into the reign of the Son of his love. By the way, he now tells you in verse 14 to kind of follow this through. In whom, who's that? The Son of his love, Yeshua, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, who is the likeness of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of all creation. So again, when it says, in whom we have redemption through his blood for the forgiveness of sins, is that only a one-time thing? Okay, he forgave your sin at that point. You came to realize who he is and everything else, so you never sin again? You never need redemption again? You never have a covenanting problem again? Of course you do. We fall short on a regular basis. Because in him were created all that are in the heavens and that are on the earth, invisible and visible, whether thrones or rulerships and principalities or authorities, all have been created through him and for him. Now, we don't seem to have as much problems with the through him part as the for him part. That's an authority problem again. All things exist for him, not just by him. We have to get back to that beginning thing where we said, why is it that we even exist? Well, because some reason, somehow, wherever it was, the Father and Son, in the beginning, the Word was Elohim, and the Word was with Elohim, etc. That whole beginning, John 1:1, there was a decision made that two entities decided they want to live forever with a bunch of people. So we exist because it's what they want, not because it's what we want. And they say it's their pleasure to give us things. It's their pleasure to provide for us. It's their pleasure to guide and lead us to the things that would make us happy. And by the way, if you can't figure out that you're happier walking his way than your way, you've not been paying attention. Okay? There should be no confusion there. All right? There should be no confusion. It's kind of like, I joke with the old commercial when they're trying to teach people against drugs, right? They would show, they show like an egg. This is your brain, and then they would scramble it and fry it, and this is your brain on drugs or whatever, right? Well, you should know, this is your life, confused, terrible, painful, sad, depressed mess, and this is your, when you were doing it your way, in darkness, and the other authorities, whatever those authorities were, and now this is your life in proper vertical light. There should be a clear difference. So he continues and he says, look, just in case you forgot, this authority, the Son of his love, has all authority. Because in him were created all the authorities. Whether they are thrones or rulerships, principalities, authorities, all of these things were created through him and for his purposes. And he is before all, and in him all hold together. And he is the head of the body, the assembly, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that he might become the one who is first in all. So there's all establishing here this preeminence. Again, that preeminence only has one purpose, to make sure you know the authority structure. This is very important, and if you've been looking at the Torah portion cycle, you can see how this played out with Joseph. You can see how this played out with Abraham to Isaac, and with Jacob, and Esau. You can see how this authority structure of the firstborn kind of plays out. And then when we saw it with Jacob and his sons, how he ended up taking Joseph, and then actually, without even allowing Joseph to do anything, he took Ephraim and Manasseh, and he sent that authority down the line. Because there's an authority structure. That was the whole point of the firstborn thing, so everybody knew who had authority. So here he's telling you, by the way, he's got authority. He has supreme authority. He says, he's the head of the body, the assembly, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. This is in verse 18. That he might become the one who is first in all, because in him all the completeness was well pleased to dwell. And through him so the Father, who is actually higher than the Son, and in case people always get mad at me for this, not everybody, but there's always somebody that does. When I mention that the Father and the Son are not equal, they're like, oh, I don't know, can I quote the Son himself saying, my Father is greater than I? Okay, that should settle that nonsense. I didn't diminish Yeshua in any way, by the way, otherwise he'd be diminishing himself. He's everything we just read. Everything was created through him and for him, because that's what the Father wanted. Because then it tells us, after saying that all was created by him and for him, etc., why was that? Because all the completeness was well pleased to dwell in him. Okay? Because in him all the completeness was well pleased to dwell, and through him to completely restore, to favor all unto himself. So there's that favor that has to do with, so he's restoring merit to the people to be then to merit being back in. This is back to the walking worthily. If it's unmerited favor that you need, well, you're always in that. So what needs to be restored? I mean, we're always walking in some sort of, not meriting his favor. I mean, every time we do something dumb, we don't merit anything except punishment or separation from him, etc. And through him to completely restore to favor all unto himself, whether on earth or in the heavens, having made peace through the blood of his stake. So understand that the blood of his stake was not there, and we could read this in other places, where it was not there to do away with Torah. And we can look at chapter 2 when it talks about how he stripped in verse 15. Well, actually, verse 14, he says, he blotted out the certificate of debt against us by the dogmas which stood against us. And having taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the stake. What is that talking about? Well, he got rid of the Torah. No. He got rid of the stuff that was causing us to be out of favor. He nailed all of our sins, it was like a rap sheet. Okay, each of us has a heavenly rap sheet, so to speak. Everything you've done that causes you to be at odds with your Creator is written down. And that gets to be blotted out by Yeshua's blood. It's not the laws that were the problem, it's your lack of adherence to them or submission to them or whatever way you want to word that. Being under the authority of them. And so we have that going on in chapter 2. So here, but remember that chapter 2 point has to do with this is how he restores to favor the groups that were not in favor. Now bear in mind, this is also talking about the good news. We talked about that a few moments ago, this idea of the good news. What is the good news? Well, it's not one single thing. It's a series of pieces of a puzzle. It is good news that we have a Messiah that came and died and was resurrected. That's incredible news. But that's not the good news. It's a piece of it. The bigger piece of it is that it's a part of how the restoration to favor of the chosen of Elohim called Israel works. And it's also the good news of how the promise to Abraham that he would be the father of many Gentiles, many nations, how that would work. See, it's the good news of how all of that's going to finally play out. Because you don't restore to favor something that never had favor. You can't restore something if it never had it. So all you Gentiles out there, he's not talking to you. Not necessarily. Now, he is talking to you from the fact that from the beginning, his desire was that all would be in his favor. All the way starting with Adam and Chava. But there's a bigger picture here. Now, this is nothing negative against the Gentiles. You guys, once you graft in, you are just as equal as any other actual blood-born son or daughter. But the restoring part is not about sinners. It's about covenant breakers. People that were covenanted broke, they need to be restored back to covenant. Because again, you don't restore something unless it started off right and broke somehow. Right? So if you have something that you bought maybe at an antique store and it's got some damage to it, you may bring it to some place or do the work yourself to restore it to its original condition. So what are you doing? You're taking something that was in a condition originally, has lost that pristineness, that condition, and now you're bringing it back and refurbishing it and renewing it back to its maybe with some paint and fixing some things that are broken or whatever it is. Well, in this case, it's relationships that need to be restored. And the relationships are in the context of covenant, which is why we spent 55 parts explaining covenant. So he's saying here, look, this is all that through him to completely restore to favor all unto himself. But that relationship is through covenant. So the Gentiles don't get to just be restored. Everybody ever lived doesn't just get to be restored to him just because of what he's saying here. They have to come now into the covenantal relationship. We do not have a multi-tiered thing here. Everybody gets to relate with our King the same way through covenant. It's available to everyone. Not everybody can understand it and see it until he opens their eyes and ears, and he will, and that's his timing and his choice. If you want to understand more about how that works, listen to the Millennium and Kingdom teaching, where I kind of lay out how I think that works. Because I know a lot of you are really struggling with understanding, what about my parents, or what about these people that, have passed away that never heard of and never understood any of this stuff? Are they doomed in some way? I don't think so. But understand that I have a teaching that addresses that fairly thoroughly, all right? The Millennium and Kingdom teaching. So this restoration to favor, again, has to do with what? Coming out of darkness authority into light authority. See, when we were in favor, we were under light's authority. Switching and going into darkness put us in disfavor. We walked outside of what would bring us merit and favor. When you tell a child to do something and they make every effort to do it and do a pretty good job of it, what do you say? Good boy, good girl, whatever. You give them a compliment. You tell them how pleased you are, that they merited accolades from you and encouragement. I'm so proud of you. Good job. You know what? We want to hear the same thing even as adults from our Heavenly Father. I'm proud of you. You are walking worthy of my calling you. I didn't waste my time. I often wonder at times if it's going too far when people counsel, at what point do I look at them and I say, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore because you're not listening to anything, so I'm not wasting my time. Don't waste anybody's time. That doesn't mean you're going to do anything perfectly, but if you're making the effort, you're not wasting time. Do you understand that? As long as you're making the effort. If my child who I gave something to do fails at it but made the effort, it's not a waste of time. If they made no effort, it's a waste of time. Okay? I give them a task to do. They say, well, I don't know how to do it. I show them how to do it. I leave. I come back. Nothing has been done. Then I wasted my time. All that time I spent showing them and instructing them was a waste of time. Now, if I come back and it's done badly, but they made an effort and they clearly misunderstood some things, whatever, but at least they tried, then it wasn't a waste of time. But there are people out there that will go to a leadership over and over and over again and listen to nothing, and you're wasting their time. If you just want a sounding board, go find a friend to be a sounding board, or go pay a professional to be a sounding board who's just going to listen to your stuff. And don't be impatient with me, and I apologize in advance, but there may be a point when you're telling me your life story that I may interrupt and say, is there a question coming? Because I'd like to know the question before I start trying to figure out what part of the story is relevant to the question. So if you want to tell me your life story, or anybody, tell them why you're telling them. In other words, I'm struggling with this, and I think you probably need to know this part of my story so that you can help me with this. Don't just start off from your whole story, and I'm sitting there wondering, where is this going? Now, it's not that I don't find people's life stories interesting. I just don't have the time with so many of you, and the numbers are growing, to be able to hear everybody's life story. Now, I may ask you lots of questions and let you tell me lots of your story, depending on what it is you're struggling with, because I might need to know a lot. And that's fine. So it's not about brevity specifically. It's about making sure that I only need to know what I need to know. Okay? I may not need to know a bunch of stuff to answer your question. I may not need to know it now. Maybe I need to know it later when we ask you a different question, when you ask me something else. But let's understand that this is all about, are you really seeking counsel, or you're just wanting to get someone to commiserate or to give comfort or just to have somebody be an ear? And by the way, some of you do an excellent, excellent job of being the ear. People need someone to unload to. Okay? I'm not against that. Okay? You need friends you can unload. Okay? Counselors are not for unloading. Okay? Counselors are for sharing information necessary to give counsel. If you need to unload, go find somebody to unload to. You can usually pay them, $75 to $125 an hour to do that. And they'll gladly sit there and let you unload all an hour at a time and charge you what they need to. Or find a friend that you can unload with, okay? Anyway, but this has to do with the restoration, because there are those that walked outside of where they were supposed to be. And that's why there's a need for the shedding of blood. That's why because there's no sin without a covenantal relationship. There are things we might agree as human beings are wrong or inappropriate, but that doesn't make it sin. Sin is a relationship with Elohim problem. Okay? Okay, we societally can decide A, B, or C is wrong. Almost every government says murder is wrong. But they don't arrest you and say you sinned. They say you just broke the law. We have a law against murder, and you broke it, so you're going to jail. But in the covenantal relationship, it's sin, because he tells us that this goes against his instructions. Excuse me. And in that relationship that we have with him, he expects us to obey his instructions. I mean, that is the whole relationship, right? I speak, you do. I say don't, you don't. I say do, you do. That's it. Because you trust that if I say it, this is what he's telling us, right? If he says it, we trust that it will bring safety, blessing, etc. So we know that in him all the completeness was well pleased to dwell, and through him this is all to completely restore to favor all unto himself. And by the way, it's not just those here, but everywhere, on earth and in the heavens. We know there's been some problems up there too. Having made peace through the blood. So what did the blood do? It made peace. It didn't take laws away. It didn't wipe out instructions. It made peace where there was enmity. We have that very clearly in, excuse me. So I want to quote you the right place. Okay, in Ephesians 2. All right, it says, verse 11, therefore remember that you were once Gentiles in the flesh, who were called the uncircumcision by that which is circumcision made in the flesh. Okay, so he's saying that the Jews called you uncircumcised. They called you Gentiles. He says that at that time you were without Messiah, excluded from the citizenship of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no expectation, without Elohim in the world. You were in darkness. Okay, you were in darkness. He said, but now in Messiah Yeshua, you who were once far off are brought near. You were not in covenant. In covenant is near. Outside of covenant is far off. These are just idiomatic phrases. They're metaphors. He says, who were once far off have been brought near by the blood, for he is our peace, who has made both one, having broken down the partition of the barrier, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, not the Torah, not the law, but the thing that was at enmity. When we are not obedient, we are like enemies to our Creator. So how do you reconcile the enemy status? He says, through the shed blood of Yeshua. You can repent all you want and say you're sorry, but remember what we talked about in the repentance teaching, actually in the forgiveness teaching. Forgiveness itself doesn't in itself make restoration happen. Are we clear on that? So he did this so as to create in himself one renewed man from two, thus making peace. Now, unless you're going to believe that the law, which Yahweh said was good and right, and Yahweh doesn't make bad things and he never makes a mistake, you can't believe that the law is what created the lack of peace. So he did all these things to make peace. And then in verse 16, to completely reconcile and restore to favor both of them, the two groups of people, unto Elohim in one body. This has nothing to do with it. Through the stake, having destroyed the enmity by it. The law was not, that is the highest level of insanity, that what Yahweh created, gave to a people, was valid for 4,000 years, was the problem. That somehow that was the problem. And he apologized, sent his son to apologize, made his poor son die a brutal death because he made a mistake giving us a law. That's ridiculousness on the highest level. But it's not the Christian's fault. It's the system that is made to hold them in a lie, in a delusion, in a bubble of unreality, in darkness. And it requires the Father and Son to open up that darkness and shine light in it. We cannot force it, and it's not their fault. We are not judging anybody. Okay? I have a big problem with the system that's holding them there. But the people, it's not their fault. It wasn't your fault when you were in darkness. Because the people in that darkness think they're in light. They're happy as can be, a lot of them. Okay? But recognize that that's what it's talking about here in Ephesians. So this is what's important. Now continue in this chapter, actually, because I wasn't even planning to be here, but okay, well, since we're here, I might as well keep going. And having come, he brought us good news, peace to you who are far off, and peace to those near. So he's saying, look, by the way, the afar off also refers to lost, scattered 10 tribes of Israel, those near being Judah, as well as the Gentiles who also hear. He says, because through him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit. So no longer are you going to be strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the set-apart ones and members of the household of Elohim. So he's talking about those that were called the uncircumcision, but also those that might as well, because Paul talks about this a lot, if you act like a Gentile, your circumcision avails you nothing. So all those who are Gentile or act like Gentiles, saying, but you can come and be co-heirs with the set-apart ones and members of the household of Elohim. Having been built upon the foundation of the emissaries and prophets, Yeshua Messiah being chief cornerstone, in whom all the building being joined together grows into a set-apart dwelling place in Yahweh, in whom you are also being built together into a dwelling of Elohim in the Spirit, in the fullness of the intent, to gather and become changed into his intrinsic nature. Listen to the teaching called Understanding the Spirit. All right? Back to Colossians. So do you understand now that this is about authority and about restoring proper authority? That's where you are being taken out of the authority of darkness. Oh, Rabbi, somehow you always manage to find an excuse to talk about authority and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, but when I read this book from cover to cover, the biggest, if not only problem in this book is an authority problem. From cover to cover. But you don't like to hear that because it rubs against your sovereignty and yourself. And how dare you tell me, blah, 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 blah. Well, you can maintain that attitude all you want. You are in darkness if you're doing that. I have no fear of making that statement. If you are in that mindset, you are in darkness. You might think you're in light, but you are in darkness. You have got to be able to sit back and say, Abba, show me anywhere that I am not completely under your authority, that anyone else or myself is still maintaining authority. Show me that so I can let it go, so I can be under your authority. Because we are told that it was all the completeness was well pleased to dwell in Yeshua, who said, I only do what my Father says, and I only say what my Father says. I am completely 100% submitted to my Father. That's why if you see me, you see the Father. That's what he said. Because there's no difference in the way one would look at the other. I sound like him. I act like him. If you see me, you see the Father. That's what we need to get to at some point. If you see me, you see a Messiah. You see, because Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Messiah, and Messiah imitated the Father. It's a vertical alignment. That's the goal there. So verse 20, and through him to completely restore to favor all, we're back in Colossians 1, all unto himself, whether on earth or in heavens, having made peace through the blood of his stake. So there's nothing here about having wiped out the law by the blood of his stake. No, he made peace between warring factions. And you, who were once estranged and enemies in the mind. See, now you're understanding what he made peace with. He says, you were once estranged and enemies in your mind. In other words, your thinking had you at enmity with the Father. He says, enemies in the mind by wicked works. Okay, so you were at enemies in the mind, but now there's work. So the mind doesn't do any works. But how you think, as a man thinketh, so he does. Because as you think, if that thought isn't taken captive, we're going to go through the model again, right? We think, emotions or the heart gets stirred up. When emotions attach to a thought, and that thought is dwelled on with emotions getting stronger, eventually an action will manifest. You will do something in line with that emotional thought, or emotion now colored thought. You had a thought, might not have a whole lot of emotion to it, but over time, strong emotion, anger, love, joy, fear, impatience, panic, excitement, whatever it is, any strong emotion attached to a thought over time is going to eventually manifest through some sort of action. So he says, your mind, you were once estranged and enemies because of the way you thought. Well, think about all of what mainstream Christianity wants you to think. They want you to think that the law was done away with. Well, that's going to cause a problem for your covenanting. It's a wrong thinking, isn't it? It's a wrong mindset. Well, I don't have to do anything. Yeshua, the Messiah, did it all for me. It's a wrong mindset. Because of the mindset, wicked works come. Works that are not worthy of the master. Okay, hopefully that's fair to say that. But now he has completely restored to favor in the body of his flesh through death to present you set apart and blameless and unreprovable before him. Now, let's stop for a second. The next verse is going to clear this up, but I want us to think about it before we get there. Somebody might stop there and say, he has done this, he's completely restored us to favor in the body, etc. So that's our status. Problem number 57 or whatever with Christianity, all right? Is it always wants you to think of status for some reason. I am saved, I'm restored, I'm in favor, everything is a status. Okay? He's saying, no. Be careful. Because that status is only verse 23. If indeed you continue. Oops. So much for a permanent status. Because there is a status that you have. And that status can change moment to moment. Based on your thinking, your mind. And the actions that manifest because of the way you think. But they want you to think of a permanent status. You are restored to favor. You are complete you've been completely restored. You're now in the reign of his love and all these things. That's a permanent status. Well, Paul makes it very clear, and hopefully people who read this will go to verse 23 when they're teaching it, wherever they're teaching it. He says, if. What a horrific word. What an awful, awful word. What do you mean, if? And not just if you believe in Messiah, which is what they would want to say. He says, if you continue. So he's saying all this stuff that I said you have, you only have, because he provided it, so it's available, and you can have it at any moment, if you continue in the belief, founded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the expectation of the good news which you heard, which was proclaimed to every creature under the heavens, of which I, Shaul, became a servant. Yes, he drew you out from under the authority of darkness into the authority of light, but you have to continue in a steadfast manner to believe and manifest the works worthy of the master. You must walk in such a way that is worthy of all of that has been given to you. If you do not continue, then you end up back in darkness. This is not rocket science. It's purely straightforward logic, which is great because we were created with a brain that's supposed to be logical. I meet a lot of people that apparently never use that part of their brain, but we are supposed to be logical. We have a very lot of illogical people out there. All right? But you were given a mind that can reason things out and think in a logical manner. If you were in darkness was your state before, and we read that in Ephesians, a place where you were strangers of the covenant. When you're in darkness, you're not in covenant. And without Elohim and without hope and all that expectation. And he then brought you into his marvelous light. In that doing so, he's restoring you and bringing you into favor. However, you only get to stay there if you stay there. Does that make sense? You only get to stay there if you actually stay there. How do you stay there? What you do, how you act, how you think is going to determine where you are. And this is very, 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 very important that we understand this. Okay? When he says in verse 20 this idea of restoring to favor, we have to ask a question. Because we didn't ask this question, probably should have earlier in the conversation. What caused them to lose favor? See, we know when we find an antique that's 100 years old, that it looks a little tattered and torn, that time will do that to things. Or people using something over time will do that to things. So what causes covenanted people to lose favor? Acting in a manner that's outside of the covenant. So you don't restore something, again, remember, unless you actually had it once and then you lost it. So how do you lose it? Don't ever forget. If breaking the law caused them to lose favor, and that should be abundantly clear reading from Genesis all the way through to Matthew, that they lost favor because they broke obedience to that authority. They came out from the light authority and went to some sort of darkness authority. Self-authority or no authority, whatever it was. Some other authority. Clearly not Elohim's authority, right? So, if that's what caused them to lose favor, how can we say that the problem then is the law? Let's wipe out the law. Then how can you possibly get restored to favor if the thing that you did to break it is not there for you now to fix it? You fix it by fixing it. I know that was way too profound for most of you. But you fix it by fixing it. All right? If I lend you my car, and I'm just allowing whatever thought will come into my head to give you some sort of a picture, and you damage my car, okay? You can't fix that problem by saying that we did away with the car. If you damage the bumper and you go and get the bumper fixed, and now give me back my car fixed, you've restored it and you've fixed the problem. Getting rid of the car, you can't say, well, I damaged the car, but really the problem was that you gave me the car, so I had a car, so I just decided to get rid of the car. Now there's no problem. Does that restore our relationship? I think I like this analogy. I think it's a good picture for you. Because you all realize how absolutely stupid that sounds. Okay? But I think that's kind of what we're trying to, Christianity tries to do with this whole thing. We gave you the covenant, which included the law. You kept breaking the law, so you get to come back in and we'll just get the law out of the way. Just get rid of that's clearly the problem. Okay, the car wasn't the problem. The one driving it probably was. Okay? Especially if you come back and say that it was your negligence that caused the problem as opposed to just somebody, you left it in a parking lot and somebody hit it. But let's say you drove in a way that you made a turn too tight and you just caught a railing or something and you scratched up the door. Whatever you did, that you did something. Let's assume in this scenario that something didn't just happen, but you, in driving it, did something to it. You did not care for it appropriately or something like that. Or even better, let's say nothing got damaged that way. You just never changed the oil. You never did any maintenance on it. And then the engine fried because you didn't guard over remember what was necessary to maintain. And then you just decided, well, that was way too much work and the problem that I had to do all of that, so we just got rid of the car. Because after all, remembering to change the oil and to put gas in it and all the other things that would be necessary, and changing the belts and brakes or whatever, that's way too much work, so we'll just get rid of the car. But now you don't have a vehicle to get you where you need to go. That's really a really good analogy, because the Torah is the vehicle that gets you where you want to go, the kingdom. Okay? So let's just get rid of the vehicle, and then we think we're still going to get to the kingdom. And then there are people out there that will misquote me and say, oh, but he took Yeshua completely out of that whole thing. No, I didn't. Yeshua is the lawgiver. He's the walking, talking Torah. He's the Word made flesh. He is the voice we're supposed to be listening to. All things were made. We read it right here. All things were made by and through and for Him. So if I'm going to focus on Torah observance, I'm doing that because that's what's well-pleasing and worthy of the Master. It doesn't diminish the Master. It elevates the Master into the authority that puts me in light authority instead of darkness authority. That's all it is. It keeps you in the correct authority. But we struggle and we struggle and we struggle. And this is really, really, really problematic. Hopefully we're going to get this, okay? Because as we're going through this, we then eventually can get to like chapter 2, where people like to use that to say, well, there it is. He blotted these things out with his death and everything else. What's the context, though, here? And I wasn't even planning to cover chapter 2, but we already talked about it a little bit. The context is, to the set-apart ones, the Colossians who are set apart. And then we get to, verse 15, having stripped the principalities and the authorities, he made a public display of them, having prevailed over them in it. So he demonstrated that all the other authorities fail where he succeeds, that they are nothing, that he is the only. And then he finally gets to 16, which says, so let no one therefore judge you in eating or drinking or Sabbath keeping, etc., festivals, new moons. Is he saying to them, let no one judge you because you're keeping the wrong things? These are to the set-apart ones. What are they keeping Sabbath-wise? Sunday? No. Christmas and Easter? No. Eating pork? No. Who's going to be judging them? Those who used to be friends with them, family members, etc., who are still doing those other things. Apparently, I know this is weird because you've never experienced this, they had friends and family that judged them for doing these things Torah-wise. I know none of you have had that experience. But I could say the same thing Paul's saying. Let no one, and I've said this in many counselings, don't let your family judge you. Don't worry about them. He says, these things which are a shadow of what's to come. He says, it's only a shadow. It's actually the reality of it's even bigger. Somehow people say shadow means like they're no good or something. If you're standing and the light is on one side of you and you're casting a shadow, the shadow is just a pale reflection of you. It gives some detail, not much, maybe a little bit of the outline of the shapes. You could tell maybe it's a person as opposed to being a lamp or something that's just because you see something tall or whatever. But you could tell maybe it's a person. You might even tell if it's a man or a woman or whatever, but you don't get a lot of detail. But it's a reflection that is this a small, pale reflection of the real. It doesn't make you less real. It means it's less real, pointing to something's even more real. So Sabbath keeping, we're only understanding it in a less real way. It's even more real when we understand the full idea of resting in Messiah. Feasts that we keep will pale in comparison to feast keeping when we're in the millennium and Messiah is here. These things are shadows of something. Okay? That doesn't make them bad. It means that they're actually we're not even fully understanding and embracing the awesomeness of what all of these things are. We're just understanding the shadow of them. He says, let no one therefore judge you. And then at the end of verse 17 it says, but the body of the Messiah. In other words, the only one who should be judging you would be from the body. Those in the body who have authority, not just everybody in the body. Remember, the body has a structure. As a matter of fact, we're told in verse 18, he is the head of the body, so the body has a structure. So there's authority in that body. We have Deuteronomy 17 explains about authority. Lots of places explain about authority. And in that authority structure, that authority can judge you as you are eating, drinking, and keeping Sabbath, festivals, and new moons. Not talking about that how dare they judge that you're keeping Christmas and Easter and Sunday and whatever you're doing. No, it's the other way around. It's like, don't let them judge you because you're not doing all that stuff, but you're keeping Rosh Chodesh, you're keeping Shabbat, you're keeping the annual festivals of Leviticus 23. Because remember, the audience is to the set-apart ones. Oh, but this is Paul now. He's talking to only Gentiles, and he's undermining everything that's ever been done. Wrong. He understands what set apart means. Set apart means doing things according to Yah. That's set apart. In other words, you are doing things as they were designed and meant to be done by the one who created them. And that includes you. You were created and designed to function a certain way, to accomplish certain things. And when you are doing them, you are set apart. You're allowing yourself to be used the way he intended. You are walking worthily of the Master. Amen? Amen. Let's go ahead and pray. Father, we come before you. And Father, we are just so excited about understanding darkness and light and a correct authority. And we are just overwhelmed with blessing that the plan that you have would allow for Yeshua to come and restore. That for what our Messiah was willing to do can give us that opportunity to be restored to favor, to be restored into relationship, to be restored into the love and the reign of the Son of your love. And so, Father, we understand, though, that we need to continue steadfast in our belief. And to that we ask that you would help us to endure with patience and with joy. Give us that strength to recognize when we start heading into a place of darkness and we start leaving the place of light. So, Father, we just want to thank you for continually unlocking little more by little more and little more those pieces of our mind and our hearts that are still at enmity so that we can restore them and set them straight. Father, we are just so blessed and appreciative. We want to thank you. We want to praise you. We want to give you all glory and honor. And we want to do so in authority, the authority of Yeshua our Messiah. In his name we pray. Amen. 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 Well, that was gentle enough. All right. So that being said, this is what we do afterwards. We call this the Afterburn. This is where we allow for comments or questions on the teaching. If you're on the live stream, you guys right there, and I can see you in your living room. Be nice to Kurt and Rob. Be respectful. This is the time when you guys, if you're going to have a problem, this is when it happens. Okay, please, this is not an opportunity for you to argue with, fight against, or set your own agenda. Allow the people that are connected to our ministry, or even if they're not, to have genuine questions about what was taught or comments, to go ahead and place them, okay? Let's be respectful, though. If this is important for all of you listening, and I can feel confident in saying this, if anything that you do does not maintain the 9 aspects of the fruit of the Spirit, you are already wrong. Okay? If you are not maintaining love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, meekness, etc., if you cannot do that, you are already wrong. So if you're not being gentle and respectful and all the other things that are required in that chat room, even if your answer or your comment may actually be right, you're still going to be wrong, okay? How you do things matters. All right? Okay. Who wants to go first? Okay, Christine?
So I listened to Discovering Your Identity Part 3 this morning, and I'd like to hopefully apply what I learned from that teaching to some of the verses here in Colossians. So can you tell me if it's applicable? In verse 12, if I read it this way, giving thanks to the Father who has made us fit to share in the inheritance of one house of the set-apart ones in the light, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness, in parentheses, being scattered, and transferred us into the reign of one shepherd, in whom we have redemption through his blood, comma, rather than having to be native born.
Okay, I would say that everything you said is correct, but I don't want it to confuse people, so let me kind of clarify it a little bit. All right. You have two things happening at the same time. You're only addressing one. Okay, one of the things that she's addressing that's correct is that there was a splitting of the kingdom and the covenanted people into two houses. And so she's talking about the restoring of that. But in the process of restoring that, it's also bringing everybody in that didn't have anything to do with either one of the houses. So that's the part that we want to make sure we don't miss that. Okay? And the other piece that is correct is that in doing so, we're dealing with like Ezekiel 37, where they are then going to choose to come under one shepherd.
And then
And by the way, I don't want to diminish that at all. You need to all understand, if you are truly a Gentile, you're only getting involved because of the promises to restore two covenanted groups of people of which you are not a part of, but can become a part of. And that's what Ephesians is talking about as well, saying that when you were Gentiles, you were not a part of this deal. But you can, because of the way that the Father planned this out with the Son and the whole process, you can now be a part of it. But the thing that you're becoming a part of is the restoring of two houses into one, which is Ezekiel 37. Okay, go ahead.
I thought it was neat to think of the Messiah's blood as, being part of that bloodline, that lineage, rather than having to be a native-born Israelite. And then in discovering your identity, you talked about the ger, or the gerim, the process of that citizenship change. And, well, maybe I can talk to you later, because I think I'm asking about different teaching in conjunction to this.
Right, because you were listening to that one this morning. Okay, don't worry, we can talk about it later. But listen, I just thought of something because when you mentioned the word blood, I think we need to understand, rather than only think of it from some sort of sacrificial way, okay? When you say, I poured out my blood into something, you're basically saying you gave your whole life into something. You gave every bit of your ounce of your effort, I sweated blood. I put every blood, sweat, and tears into. It's another part of it is not just literal. It's that idiomatic understanding of he gave all of his being, his life, into making this happen. Okay, so when it talks about the idea of through his blood, through what the life is in the blood, through his life, through his blood, through his giving everything, it brings these things. Don't only think of it and diminish it to the idea of the literal blood coming out of his body and somehow that goes into the sacrificial system. Does that make sense? Does that help a little bit? Okay, who's next? Steve?
All right. This is from in another teaching you had stated that the Torah holds the world together. And I think this ties into my thought was that with it in place, we should not wonder why our lives are a mess, because if we were under the authority of the Torah, the chaos would be far more manageable if we were under Torah.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody manages the chaos of their life in the world if they don't have the Torah. Okay? And I'm not speaking from, I've always been raised in it, so I don't know. I lived without the Torah, and I know what that's like. I don't know how you have a hope, how you're not. I can understand why so many in the world suffer anxiety and depression. What I don't understand is why so many in the body do. If you have your hope in him and you trust in him and have emunah, why would you ever have anxiety or depression? because we're coming from a different place. And in that different place, you were under an authority of darkness, and letting go all those little darkness areas of your life is hard to do. So I'm not picking on you if you still suffer from these things. Realize that that's a part of you that's still living in darkness. Because if you're in light, you would never be depressed. If you're in light, you would never have fear and anxiety. You would never have insecurities, because in the light, none of those things can exist. So again, they're just showing you an area that you need to work on. So I'm not picking on you, mocking you, diminishing you. This is a rampant problem in the body. But the body, all of us, came out of darkness. I don't think I've ever met anybody that didn't spend some time in darkness. And so darkness breeds those things. Remember, it says that you had a problem in your mind. Your enemy's in your mind. And in that mind is when you're insecure and depressed and fearful and all those other negative things. This all starts off in your mind, and that mind, if it's under a darkness authority, is going to just flourish in that mess. Okay? So don't be even more depressed now that you still have more darkness in your life. Just recognize that that is an area you need to work on to find a way to walk in light. Have your mind in light. Focus on, I can do all things through Yeshua. Focus on, nothing is impossible. Focus on, He's got the plan. I fully trust it, even if I can't see it. Focus on emunah. He causes or allows all things because all things work for the good. Focus on all that stuff and stop that other thinking. We need to have thinking that's in that light, and then walk in that light, okay? All right, next. Deirdre?
I'm giggling because you kind of stole what I was going to say. It's basically was just, I don't know, this
I can't steal it because that would be breaking a command. I just preemptively said it.
Well, this is kind of a joint thing because my husband had the thought and I'm like spitting out the comment. But I don't know, during the sermon of, the mindset and, if you're thinking a certain way, then I don't know, it's reminded him of René Descartes, I think, therefore I am.
Well,
if you're thinking, I don't know, to me, if you're thinking, Torah is, wrong, this is not, the right way to go, then, that's how you're going to act. But
all right, so instead of I think, therefore I know that I exist, which is kind of more what it was saying, I think, therefore I am what I think. Okay? Let's just kind of bring the circle around. I think, therefore I become or I am what I think. So if you change what you think, you can be something different. And so we're supposed to change what we think, and we're told that very clearly, let this mind, the mind of Yeshua, be in you, so you think like Him, and if you think like Him, guess what? You become like Him. Okay? Because if you think like Him, you'll act like Him. So I think, therefore I become what I think. So if I work on the mind and the thoughts, then that'll affect what I become. Okay, who's next? Okay, Francis?
Hi. In conjunction to what you were saying and what she was saying regarding what you think and thinking in alignment to what Yahweh thinks and all of that, can you help me understand that in conjunction with the name it, claim it Christian mindset and positive thinking? Is there ever a time where that's inappropriate, where, a lot of people out there will confess positive things? You know what I mean?
Sure. I think I know what you mean. Okay, so here's the deal. First of all, on the one hand, recognize that what you think is not magical, meaning it's just because you think it once or twice, it doesn't mean that anything's going to happen. And thank Yah for that, because we think a lot of dumb things, and we're glad those dumb things don't manifest. Okay? So the secret, which was out there, and all that whole idea of the law of attraction and everything else, that law is true. It just doesn't work the way some people might like to think it is. I mean, you tend to attract and align yourself in a certain way and attract things with your thoughts and your actions over a period of time. Okay? And so recognize that the name it, claim it is now also dealing with a second problem, which is somehow they believe that they're obligating the Creator, or they're obligating the universe or whatever they believe in. A lot of them are not, Torah or Bible-based, but there's more sort of secular humanism or some other universal mind or whatever they believe in, but they believe that somehow that is obligating, or you are obligating that to do something for you and manifest. So the name it, claim it is, if I say it, the God is obligated to give it to me. That's a wrong mindset. Okay? Better you should understand that if you say it because he said it and you dwell on it and think on it, your actions will be in line with it. You can count on it manifesting because that's what he's told you. He's told you if you think a certain way and then you'll behave a certain way, you can feel confident you'll receive certain things. As opposed to name it, claim it. I get frustrated sometimes. Sometimes I laugh when, somebody may talk to me and see how I'm doing. I say, well, I think I'm dealing with a head cold. Oh, no, don't claim that. I'm not claiming that. I'm just stating a fact. Give me a break. It's not like, what do you believe in voodoo too and black magic and whatever? I mean, you're all afraid somebody put a curse because the voodoo, the boogeyman's going to show because I just said the boogeyman. I mean, come on, all right? If I'm suffering from a head cold, saying it doesn't change that or make it worse. And saying I don't have one isn't going to make it disappear if I have one. But putting myself in a right emotional place where I go, well, I think I have a head cold, but you know what? I'm not going to let it get me down. I know I'm going to recover. I'm going to be very positive about that. I'm going to be looking forward to the healing that will come eventually. I'm going to make lifestyle changes, like I'm going to make sure I'm doing a better job not eating sugar and other things that will hurt my immune system. I'm going to maybe do some more chicken soup or something that will help it or whatever. And so I will get better. All right? And that's going to start with better thoughts and being more mindful of maybe some of the things that caused me to be more susceptible to getting sick. Maybe I wasn't getting enough sleep. Maybe I was causing too much stress on my system because of some sort of emotional thing. If you're depressed, if you're angry, if you're insecure, if you're upset in any kind of negative emotion, this will diminish your immune system. This is scientific. They've measured that. Positive emotions are immune system boosters. If your immune system is not doing so well, go watch a bunch of stuff that makes you laugh your head off. It will literally boost your immune system. Okay? I don't know if it was true or not, but I remember reading like a Reader's Digest story many, many years ago about somebody with a fatal illness that just decided, well, I'm going to die. I might as well just enjoy the end. So they just spent hours and hours for like a couple of weeks just watching everything that made, and they got better actually, just laughing their way to health. Instead of terminally getting depressed about the fact that their health was bad. All right? And that thunder, see, he agrees. That was it, above, amen, For those online, you couldn't hear that, but there was like a thundering rumble outside. All right, but be careful with the way Christianity does it. Christianity wants to turn it into some sort of incantation magic. And not just Christianity, those in the secular world also. The idea of name it, claim it, speak positive. Look, you should speak positive because as you think, so you'll act and your behavior and your mindset will be, and it will affect everything. All right? You wonder why you have a crummy day sometimes? Because you started off the day with an attitude that was a crummy attitude, and it just kept going on and on and on. And things that maybe you normally would never have bothered you will bother you. Things that you may not even notice, you'll notice. Because you're going to notice what matches your mindset. If you go to something expecting to be miserable, you will find every reason to be miserable. We had a guy once said that he used to go to every congregation he went to looking for reasons to leave, and he always found one. And then he realized that maybe he should go looking for reasons to stay. And you know what? He found some of those too. So the mindset's important. The name it, claim it thing is all that fluffy stuff that attracts people because people want to do something that doesn't require anything. What effort is there to just claim something? Now, if you're going to say things as sort of like a mindset mantra, I'm going to walk in the merited favor of Yah, then the more you say that, the more you're going to realize I have to do things that actually match that. If you're going to say, I'm happy, then you're going to do things that match being happy. If you're going to be angry, you're going to do things that match being angry. So claiming it or naming it from that point of view is totally appropriate. Okay, the power of positive thinking, there are books like that. The power of belief, there are books like that. I've read all those books. Those things work because as you think, you will eventually do things that will help that come to be. But it's not one of those snap your fingers, magical, whatever things. And you do not get to obligate the creator of the universe. He's already obligated himself. If you will do what he says, he will take care of everything else. He's already told you that. But he didn't say he would take care of it the way you want. He'll just take care of it. You could trust that or you don't. And if you're only banking on this physical world, then you're focusing incorrectly anyway. Okay? Because this physical world, no matter how abundant your life may have been, eventually you die. There's nobody, in the immortal words of Jim Morrison, nobody gets out of here alive. Okay? They just don't. You can have abundant health, total abundant wealth, have very little stress, everything going all well. It's still not going to change the fact that you get to die. Okay? Now the rain's coming from the thunder we heard. Okay? So that being said, okay, next question. Okay, Michael.
Testing? So the first one's just kind of a comment. I had watched or listened to another one of your teachings where you were talking about when Yeshua had cast out a demon and it was by whose authority did he cast it out?
Is there a problem? Hold on. We have a warning for a tornado warning? Do you want us to move? Not yet, okay. We're good, continue.
And when he says, if I've cast out this demon by the authority of my Father, then the kingdom has come upon you. So that first part of Colossians kind of brought that to mind, that the kingdom, when you're in darkness and you go to light, the kingdom has come upon you. So that was the first kind of statement. And then the second one was in Colossians 1:20, where it says, okay, and through him to completely restore to favor all unto himself, whether on earth or in the heavens. Is there a possibility that there's when he's saying that he's going to restore restoration, I can see what, the restoration to us as humans. But when he says in heaven, what does he have to restore in heaven?
Well, again, there was an authority problem up there too. We've got we have a understanding that there's been a rebellion, or there will be continue to be at the end. The Book of Revelation talks about some of these things. So all things are going to come completely properly under authority where they need to be, and that's what it's talking about. And by the way, we didn't really hit on it hard enough, I guess. But in verse 13, when it talks about coming out of the darkness authority, we're transferred into the reign. Okay. Not the democratic government or this kind of government or that kind of government. There's no voting. It's a kingdom. It's a very specific type of authority. So we're transferred into a kingdom authority of the Son. And so that's an important thing, again, to remind us. It's all about that vertical structure. Okay, who's next? Okay, Rick?
Yeah, I had a question on Colossians 1:9. It talks about, see if I can find it here, praying that you be filled with the knowledge of his desire in all wisdom, his desire. And I was trying to find it. I couldn't find it quickly enough in the Old Testament, but where what does Yahweh desire of you?
Deuteronomy 10:12.
There you go. Okay, thank you.
Wow, we haven't quoted that in a while either, but yeah.
Yeah, that plus also, a lot of what you talk about is authority and the authority structure, and we have an author. He wrote the book. He came in the flesh. So we're supposed to be like him or become like him.
Amen. And again, apparently I need to bring Deuteronomy 10:12 into it more if you forgot which verse that was, so that's my fault. Okay, Deuteronomy 10:12, it says, now, Israel, what is Yahweh's desire for you but to love him, to fear him, to walk in all his ways, to serve him, and to guard his commands? Okay? All right, who's next? I'm back onto this side of the room. And by the way, see, that's one of the things that's really important is that, we're getting questions from verses like verse 9, etc. I could have just started in verse 12 and 13, mentioned darkness and light, and had missed some of the context things. But always remember who the speaker is, who the audience is, and what the issue is, or why they're even talking is so critical to remember that this is to the set-apart ones. Okay? Okay, Shira. And hopefully the live stream is getting this okay because there is a lot of noise from the rain.
There is. I'll talk loudly. Thank you for a tremendous message. I just would love to share a little bit of a testimony my last several weeks. I've been in need of emotional comfort, and I headed to, watching things and spending my time getting it the way I did back when I was a Christian, just whatever, binge watching serial things, and I even binge watched Little House on the Prairie. So
you have my sympathy.
Yeah, thank you. But when you got near the end and we were talking about verse 23, if you continue in the belief, submission to the covenant you made, and it talks about being established, grounded, and settled, not moved away from the expectation of the good news. And then you said, what causes covenant people to lose favor? Acting outside of the covenant. And it just really hit me this last week. I want to testify that Father has really brought that home to me, that acting outside of the covenant, Shira, is not just neglecting the Sabbath or whatever, eating the wrong things, or even boiling your water for tea on Shabbat by mistake. Forgive me, Father. But as soon as I don't love him with all my heart, all my being, all my mind, all my resources, that word strength and might, I looked it up in Strong's. Is that right? I think it says, one of the meanings of that is all your resources. And
yeah,
I thought,
that's true.
What's the biggest resource any of us have? It's time.
Yes.
And you talked about wasting time. I've been listening to your wonderful message on Teach Us to Pray, and you really lit into us that time about how we spend our time. And so I want to just testify. This week, I got really convicted, and I said, okay, I've got to do just what you were talking about. I've got to make positive confessions from my mind. And where did I go to that? Back to all your teachings on Psalm 119. So I've been getting up in the morning saying, I love Torah. I love to study the Word. I love Yahweh with all my heart and soul and mind. I love to obey him. I love to pray. I love to all the things that I have been drifting away from. And he has been so faithful to give me several days of just richness in his word. And so I just want to submit that if we want to continue in the belief, we've got to be in the word.
Amen. Amen. I'm going to take the opportunity to hit on a verse that you quoted, but one of the words that I didn't really focus on, which was founded. Okay? If indeed you continue in belief, founded and steadfast. So founded is like the foundation. Okay? So the foundation of covenant is obviously as Exodus, the giving of the commandments, the coming together at Sinai, Exodus 19, etc. Now, but also what Shira was talking about is founding is also at the beginning. It's the base. So if you start your day by your foundation of your day being spending time getting your mind right, I'm not even saying you have to pray or read or do anything specific, but just like she said, I love Yahweh, I love Torah, I'm excited about what I'm going to do today to keep those things going. My mindset, I'm going to set my mind. That's your foundation every day. Then you can find yourself, having an easier time in doing these things steadfast. The foundation, founding yourself. Okay, so how do you start? Some of the most successful people in the world, or actually almost all the really outstandingly successful by whatever standard you use, almost all of them have some sort of morning routine. Okay, they have a ritual, or by ritual I don't mean like in a religious way. They just have a set pattern of behavior to start their days that gives them what they believe an optimal opportunity to have a maximally successful day. And so Shira discovered that if she starts her day off thinking about, I love Torah, I love Yahweh, I love your word, I love this, and that's your focus, instead of starting your day off with, I got to go to work, so now you're all in this already negative whining focus. But if you can have a zeal and a zest and an excitement, and you focus it towards the right things, what might come of that? All right, so founding, I think that word founded there, because he says it first, says, if indeed you continue in belief, founded, your foundation, and then steadfast on the right foundation, what will that manifest? Okay, it'll manifest what you're hoping for. All the stuff this is the if that goes, if you do this, you get all that stuff we just talked about, it's so great. Being, transferred into the reign of the Son of Love, the Son of His love, the Father's love. Okay, who's next? Okay, Richard?
Yeah, thank you. I've been accused of being dyslexic, so I'm going to go from 23 to 21.
Okay.
If we continue, in wicked works, our minds become the enemy, and we are not restored. So
Correct.
I think the technical word is tukish. If we just sit around and think about this and do nothing, nothing happens. But when we actually partake in the process, which is an action, then we are not an enemy. The other thought that came to me, which makes no sense, because if we're dealing with you used the word, I forgot what it was. I mean, people that don't believe.
Uncovenanted.
Uncovenant. You can't use logic there. But we're quick to tell us in Christianity that we don't have to worry about works. It's all about just love them and life is great. Well, there's participation in that. And the logical side of that would be that if there's wicked works, there must be good works. It's just like the light and dark.
Amen.
And they don't want to hear that.
Amen. That's true. I mean, one of the things that I think, and I'm not sure I could hear you correctly, but I said that people don't want to hear that. Is that what you said at the end? Yeah. Information has to be shared, but there's only half of it. The other half of it has to be received. And you can choose not to receive, even though it's available and it was shared, or you can choose to receive. And that, by the way, goes to the good or the bad. You could choose to receive stuff you should have refused, and you could choose to refuse that which you should have received. Okay, who's next? Okay, Wayne?
Okay, so I've been getting prepared for a Pesach of the teaching we're going to start doing with the kids, the armor of Elohim. And everything that we read today brought me back to everything, especially when it was like guarding our loins, and how you brought it to guarding the loins of our minds, of putting everything straight, and how that's the first thing that he talks about is girding our waist with truth, which is Messiah, which is the Word.
Amen.
So I just want to point that out. It's really helping me get more in depth in this teaching. And, you adult kids, pay attention to this because you're going to do this at the feast.
Amen.
Wow.
Listen, when we get to, eventually we're going to get back to, as we wrap this up, we're going to get to Romans 13, where it talks about putting on the armor of light. And I was going to mention then from Ephesians 6, the armor of Elohim. So we are going to cover that at some point. But I'm glad you already made that connection since you are already somewhat immersed in that. So
Yeah, and I suggest for those online that your teaching the armor of Elohim is really good. It's a 2-part, but it's a really good, and it'll help them with a lot of things.
okay, so armor of Elohim. There you go. All the kids are like quickly writing down. There's another teaching that was mentioned. Boy, we mentioned a lot of teachings today. All right, who's next? Okay, Rabbi Tom.
Thank you. Recently, I've just relearned that it's important to balance our walk, because I've discovered just for myself what I've been doing lately is trying to get more information and ignoring the relational side, and the scale got tipped on information and was raised up on the relationship. And when Shara made the comment she did, I thought of that movie, Cool Hand Luke, where the warden said, "You got to get your mind right, boy. You got to get your mind right." And that's what we have to do. We got to get our minds right. And that's more important than, I mean, I'm not saying learning is unimportant. Learning is vital, but it's more important than any learning that we could possibly do to get in the right. And I've been guilty lately of ignoring that. And I've tried to solve it by praying more. That's what we got to do, pray.
Amen. Look, in Philippians 2:5, we quote this all the time, it says, "Let this mind be in you." But the problem is, you can also let any other mind be in you. You can adopt or adapt or, allow it to be infused into you. Your mother's mind, your father's mind, your other pastor's mind, if you ever had a pastor back in the day, your best friend's mind, your coworker's mind, and you, next thing you know, you're thinking like them. You see this with our children sometimes. They become friends with somebody, and one of the two will end up adapting the mind of the other. It's not always clear which one's going to, influence the other, but it's an influence thing. When he says, "Let this mind be in you," he says, let the mind of Yeshua influence your thinking. But we're already letting other minds influence our thinking. So you should be very selective of that. Look, I'm a big believer in listening to instructional stuff, reading stuff, whether it's life coaching related stuff or personal development or whatever it is, but I'm very selective of which ones I'm going to let that influence me. Okay? Because there's an old saying that you will become all of your inputs. The people you hang out with, what you listen to, what you read, etc., is going to eventually develop the mindset you have will match that influence. And so you should choose carefully what you spend a lot of your time immersed in, because it's going to have a potential to really influence the way you approach things, the way you respond to things, because that's the way you think. You think a certain way, you respond a certain way. You think a certain way, you take certain actions. You think a certain way, your mindset, your emotional state, your way of interpreting and filtering things is now being influenced by something else. And that's good if you choose the right influencers. But you need to choose influencers that have what you want, that not the ones that don't have what you don't, that have what you don't want or don't have what you want. So why do we want to let this mind be in you that was in Yeshua? Because Yeshua has everything you want. So that's why you should let that mind influence you more than any other. So really when it says, "Let this mind be in you," I don't think I've ever taught it this way before, but the idea of using the word influence. Be influenced by and become in line with his mind. Okay? And I don't want it to sound very Christian-like where, "Let this mind be in you," almost like you're being possessed and somehow his mind now takes over your mind. No. You're now modeling and molding your thoughts to be congruent with the way he would think in a given situation or a given opportunity. Okay, who's next? Okay, live stream.
All right, comment from Tracy Waymeyer. She says, "I'm still thinking on the car analogy." She goes, "That was awesome. Each car comes with a manual. The Torah would be that for us."
Well, that's true. It's not really part of the model I gave, because the model really had to do with more of, claiming that the car was the problem. But yeah, if you are going to have a car, you really should understand what is necessary to maintain that car. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, from Olivier and Janet Hoffman. It says, Rabbi, Colossians 2:15, could this be possibly related to when Yahweh sent the plague to Mitzrayim, demonstrating his might over all of their gods?
Yes, it would definitely be a type and shadow of what is being talked about here. He certainly stripped the principalities and authorities and showed them to be of no real authority in the Exodus story. Go ahead.
Okay, from Steve. It says, how do we know if we are considered set apart? Can you know this by yourself, or does leadership identify it to you like identifying your gift that leadership is supposed to do?
Look, I was just going to come up with some wise guy answer, but I'm not going to. Okay, so this is something that I want to be clear about. Because I've been accused, especially in the Are You Saved teaching, of somehow making, and I guess I maybe said the words, but it's not the way I intended it to be, the idea that you can't know something. I was like, because I've said you really won't ultimately know where you stand until you go before the judge. I mean, that's why you have to go before the judge, and the judge tells you where you stand. But I also know, I said it in the teaching, is that if you're doing what Scripture lays out to do the best you can, you should have every confidence that you have that status. Okay? So when it talks about set apart, if you're making every effort to be covenanted, which means that you're doing the Exodus 19, obeying his voice and letting that voice have full authority over you, that by definition, you should have confidence that you are a set apart one. A set apart one doesn't make you special. It doesn't mean you're in. It doesn't mean you've arrived. It means that you are in the process of the continuing in the belief founded and steadfast and doing the works worthy of the master. So what do we call that person? We can call them lots of things. We call them covenanted. You can call them Israel. You can call them set apart. Okay? I mean, labels are important, but they're not everything in terms of, making sure you got the right label. All right? And actually, labels are problematic if the person you're talking to understands your label different than you meant it. Which is why I don't like phrases like saved, grace, born again, because they don't necessarily mean to you, if you're my person I'm talking to, the way I mean them if I were to use them. So now we have to have a conversation about what I mean when I use a term. Okay? So I usually avoid terms that I know tend to be problematic in terms of us understanding the same, and I try to use other ways to explain it so that it's more clear. Because we have already built in understandings of the connotation of the word. We have an idea of what we think the word means, and, Okay, go ahead.
From Olivier and Janet Hoffman, says, Rabbi, chapter 1, verses 3 and 9, Yeshua prayed for us, so if our goal is to be like him, we should be praying for one another for endurance, patience, etc., but also work on our halakha individually. Is this correct?
All right, first of all, it doesn't say Yeshua prayed for it. It said Paul was praying. Okay, we give thanks to Elohim and the Father of the Master Yeshua, praying always for you. So Paul and Timothy were saying that they were praying for the people. Now, look, we should pray for one another. I mean, there's other verses which say pray for one another. But also, more importantly, this is talking about how he, in the leadership position, with his responsibility for those that are under his responsibility, prayed for them, cared enough about them, wanted the Father to give them, what they needed to be equipped to walk in a worthy manner. But that, of course, goes back to Ephesians, for the role of the fivefold is to equip the set-apart ones with everything they need to eventually reach the fullness of the completeness of Messiah. Okay, next question.
All right, from Jesus Fierro says, in Colossians 1:1, we read, Paul, an apostle. My question is, are apostles and prophets for today?
Yes, I think I covered that last week. It's simply a role that is played. So if you look at the Chabad uses this almost exclusively as like their primary way of doing things. They train up people and they send them out to a place to set up a point of contact in every city in the world as much as they can. We could be doing the same thing once we could train up people to do that. Apostle simply means sent one. That's why in the scriptures it calls it an emissary. One sent with a message representing somebody else. Okay, in this case, representing Messiah. He says, I'm an emissary of Yeshua. So an apostle is someone who is an emissary of Yeshua. Doesn't mean that they do anything other than that particular, it's just letting you know the hat they're wearing at the time. Okay? When I do a class and I'm teaching you something, like when I did the teachings about Shabbat, when I did the teachings about the feast, basic, this is what, when, where, how, what to do, what not to do, etc., then I'm wearing the teacher hat. When I'm kind of cracking the whip and saying, come on, let's do it, you know what to do, but you're not doing it, that's the prophet hat. If I'm visiting a town, trying to help establish a group of people into a group of, who have come together and they can actually form a congregation, that's the apostle hat. So yeah, these roles are for today. And this person obviously, is new to some of the teachings here. So last week I covered that quite a little bit. Some of the other teachings I've done, I covered it. Understanding the roles of the fivefold ministry. So yes, they are absolutely, because in Ephesians, to whoever asked that question, I think it was Jesus, look, the thing is, those roles, it says until. Those roles need to be in place until, and the until has not happened yet. Until we all come into the unity of the completeness of the fullness of Messiah, which has not happened yet, okay? Next question. And when I say next question, I can't help myself. Manny put together a couple of really good videos now under the M2I Worldwide YouTube channel. And one of them I watched the other day for the first time. Because I trust him with his stuff because he puts these things out there so good. And the video ends with the light going out and it says, next question. Have you seen that video? No, you got to watch that one. That's a good one. And it's just, after I said whatever I said, at the end of it, I go, next question, and the light goes out. Anyway, next question.
All right, from Georgia, it says in Colossians 1:19, could completeness be replaced with creation or set apart ones? If not, could you explain the verse more clearly for me, please?
Say this, can completions be what? Where?
1:19 says, could completeness be replaced with creation or set apart ones? If not, could you please explain the verse more clearly?
No, it's just saying that in describing Yeshua and saying that Yeshua is the one who did all these things, and it says that all these things, having him have the preeminence, having the authority over all these other things, rulerships, the principalities, everything in verse 16, that all of this, that made him before all, and in him all comes together, and all these other things that have to do with all that authority, head of the body, everything else, this is all because in him all the completeness of the Father was well pleased to dwell. So no, calling it set apart ones, calling it creation, it's missing the point. The completeness of the Father was well pleased to dwell in this one, and because of that, all these other things were done to serve him. Okay? And by the way, if we're going to be kings and priests, it's because at that point, the completeness of the Father will be well pleased to dwell in us. Think of it that way, okay? Good question.
All right. From Denise, it says, in Colossians 2:14, it states, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which is contrary to us, and nailed it to the cross. Please explain. What are the ordinances?
Okay, so when you're looking at verse 14, okay, he says, and you will go, let's go further back, okay? Okay, trying to figure out where the right place is to go back first so that we can understand this. If we go back to verse 9, because in him dwells all the completeness of the mightiness bodily, and you have been made complete in him who is the head of all principalities and authorities. Now we're establishing that he has authority to do this next thing. Okay, we're making sure that context-wise, you know that he has the full authority to do what is about to come after that. That in him you were also circumcised with a circumcision not made with hands, in the putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Messiah. Okay, so now he's saying is, look, there's one thing to take away a piece of flesh, but you're actually having your heart circumcised, which always, by the way, was both were required. And by the way, this verse is not telling you that the fleshly one is no longer required. That's not what's going on here either. But what we're saying is that having done these things, having been buried with him in immersion, in which you were raised with him through the belief in the working of Elohim, who raised him from the dead. So now we're understanding that there was this resurrection and there was this change from death to life. He says, and you, being dead, because of in your trespasses, you did things that brought the death penalty. You being dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, he has made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses. So now let's keep understanding that that's what it's all about. Now what follows is he explains what that looks like because of the trespasses. He says, how did he do this? He blotted out the certificate of debt that you owed because of trespasses. Okay? The certificate of debt that was required by the law. Now, he didn't get rid of the law. He got rid of the certificate of debt that you required because you broke the law, which stood against us. The law didn't stand against you. The certificate of debt stood against you. And he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the stake. See, what you also don't know is that historically, in the day this is talking about, they would literally nail your offenses to the stake that you were crucified on. So if someone walked by, they know why you were there. Okay? Look it up. It's historically accurate. So they understood what this meant. You don't, because you never picture that. You see the movies where they put Messiah up on a cross. They put maybe the thing that says, here's King of the Jews, whatever, above his head. But they never see this whole nailing of this is why he's here. Okay? But that's what they did. And so he's saying, look, Messiah took the guilty verdict that you had because you were guilty. You were trespassing. And he took that and said, I will take that and pay for it. Imagine we'll go back to the car analogy. Imagine you have a problem with speeding and you get a lot of speeding tickets. Okay? Those tickets are against you. They're held against your record. They're held against your license. And what if somebody came in and said, I will take those away. I'll wipe it off your license. I will pay your tickets for you. They will no longer be held against you. By the way, does that now mean you can never get another ticket? No. If you speed, you still get in trouble. The law is still there. You do this a little bit with that, how many of you, I don't have to raise your hand, but I know I've done this in the past because as a younger man with driving a fast car, got tickets, and there was a way to go take a class, and if I took the class, it would wipe points off my license. So it would take something that was against me and wipe it out. And I did something to accomplish that. And what this is saying is that you had something against you, not the law, the breaking of the law. The ticket. Let's just make it simple. You broke a Torah command, it created a ticket. And those tickets are accumulating. And because they're against you, they need to be taken out of the way or you can't have a forever kingdom experience. Because those tickets would not allow for you to pass into that kingdom. And so he makes it possible through his death, burial, and resurrection to have that taken away. Now, it doesn't take away the possibility that you would continue to sin, which is why Paul tells you things like, if you indeed continue. This is why Yeshua tells us in John, all those branches that don't stay in me end up in the fire. And they burned up like the kindling, right? So you can choose not to stay in him. But what he's saying is if you choose to stay, I provided a way for those things that were against you, that you were guilty of, to no longer be held against you. So not only are they wiped out, like as far as like, they could be taken off your record, but they're actually, expunged. If we think of it like today's legal thing, expunged, like there is no record of it anymore. They're expunged. Now, that doesn't expunge all future offenses. It means that everything that you did that involved that thing is expunged from your record. Okay? So now when we look at it, we say, look, and you who are dead in your trespasses, is about trespasses. The one who has authorities, head over all the principality and authority, from verse 10, etc., who had all the mightiness of Elohim in bodily form in him, that one was able to blot out the rap sheet. Okay? The certificate of death, the tickets that were against us by the dogmas, by the law. And there's nothing wrong with the law, but the law did let you know that there was a problem, which stood against us. Now remember, it's not the law, but it's the certificates of debt that were against you. And he's taken them out of the way and nailed that to the stake. Does that make sense now? Okay? And by the way, then him stripping the principalities and authorities, saying, look, you were under the authorities of darkness. All of this strips away that darkness, puts you in light so that you don't have those penalties anymore because you're not going to walk in the light. Okay? If you walk in light, nothing can be against you. Now, of course, if you choose to walk back in the darkness, you can accumulate a bunch of new tickets. And that's where you then have to repent and make teshuvah and then ask Yeshua to have the blood then applied to those new tickets. Does that make sense now? Hopefully that answered the question. Okay, next question.
All right, comment on that from Pete Lamb. Says, excellent analogy coming from a prosecutor. Just believing that you're a law-abiding citizen isn't enough. You have to walk it out.
Amen.
All right, from Greg Wallen. Says, Rabbi, in your menu example, I see there are two choices on that menu, light and darkness. There are sub-menus with each choice, some leading towards the light side, others the dark side. Your logical thought?
Let me say that one more time. Okay, there's two menus, light and dark, but then sub-menus for what?
There are sub-menus with each choice, some leading towards the light side and the others in the dark, leading others to the dark side. A logical thought on that.
I don't know that I understand that to be a question. I mean, obviously, if there's things on that are sub-menus of the light and lean in that direction, those are things you should be focusing on and doing. And if there's anything that can lean towards the dark side, you need to avoid those. And that seems simple logic. That's why I asked you to say it again, because I wasn't sure I actually heard a question in there that wasn't just, it sounded much more like a straightforward comment. Okay? And by the way, I looked it up on my phone just for you that we do have a sub-channel called MTOI Worldwide, all one word, MTOI Worldwide. It's got two videos on there now that Manny had put up there. One called Don't Give Up, Change Your Mind and Heart. And then you also, How Do We Witness to the People, where I explained that we're really not there to witness through knocking on the doors and everything else. And that's the one that finishes with, next question. Okay. They're short. One's 5 and almost, they're both about 6 minutes long. They're not that long. All right, go ahead. Next question.
From Georgia, in Colossians 2:17, could the shadow of things to come be the Sabbaths and the festivals, etc., of which we will be keeping in Olam Haba?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably exactly what it's talking about. The point is that the Christian teachers will try to diminish that, these things are not a big deal, they're not important because they're just shadows of something. And they'll also get it wrong from a point of view of, that it's talking about judging them and keeping the pagan stuff. And they get that backwards, okay? I mean, I think the most likely correct context of all this is like, hey, look, you let that stuff go, you're no longer doing it. And we all feel this time of year we just passed through. A lot of you that are no longer doing Christmas had a lot of family members judged you because you're no longer doing Christmas. Or they'll judge you because you're going to Sukkot when you go to Sukkot, or you're going to Passover, or you're keeping Shabbat on Saturday now. So he's saying, look, don't let anybody judge you in these things. All right? Or that you're not eating pork anymore, or whatever it is. Okay, that's only something that should be dealt with within the body of Messiah. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, we got a few more. From Norma Silva. Says about changing our minds. What about those that isolate themselves, claiming having a direct relation with the Father in a deeper...
Whose phones are going off? But everybody's phone should be on silent.
That was this for some reason.
Okay.
Okay, back Norma Silva. About changing our minds, what about those that isolate themselves, claiming having a direct relation with the Father in a deeper spiritual level, but they do not interact with the body and are not in compliance with Torah? Are those considered to be in darkness?
Yes. Because he tells you that you're to understand him in the context of a personal relationship in a group context. And so that's A. And B is everything is done in a structure. The light structure is an authority structure. And that structure, it's not a structure of one. So there's a certain amount of darkness in a person that says, I get direct downloads, I don't need to be a part of any group, and I'm just in a deeper place than the rest of you. I'm going to go sit in a cave and hide. Elijah tried that, and now we said, no. You're not by yourself. There's 10,000 that haven't bent the knee. Get back out there and get back to work. Okay? So no, that person is dealing with a certain... Now again, when you say darkness, we're not talking about complete darkness. In other words, even in Christianity, there's not complete darkness. There were some things that were... We need to go in the shelter? All right, we're going to need to end the broadcast there, and we need to get everybody into the back room. Okay. Just go back into the back kitchen.